Instagram is going to get mad at me. Hello and welcome to the show. It is a great day here on Mary Grace Media, and we have a wonderful, wonderful show lined up for you. As you are familiar with, most of you, I have with me my friend Dave Hayes, also known as Praying Medic. And as usual, it seems like every month or so we get together to have a conversation. And in between those times, we're kind of wondering, what are we going to talk about? And then with like clockwork, within about 48 hours of going live, we get more material than we know what to do with. So this is the case today as well. Welcome, Dave. It's great to have you back.
Thanks, Mary. Good to be back on the show. It's too bad there's nothing to talk about, but maybe we'll figure something out.
Yeah, it always happens this way. And by the way, the title of today's show, as always, we call this show Conspiracy of Truth. And the reason that we call it that, well, you can figure it out. But the thing that's so ironic about this is that certain channels actually like to ban my material, especially when I have Dave on, for talking about things that are true. And today's episode is the Fight, Fight, Fight edition of Conspiracy of Truth, episode 18. So if you're watching the replay and you are watching episode 18, the Fight, Fight, Fight edition, that is the most recent one as of the 24th of August, 2024. And so if you are just coming in, I encourage you to share this, tag people, let people know that we are live. And also just let us know in the comments where you're watching from. That would be fantastic. Another thing I want to let you know, if you're watching on YouTube, you have a limited window to stay on that channel today, because we are going to shut down that stream after a few minutes, and we're going to direct you to some other places that are more favorable to free speech. You can go into the show notes on YouTube as you're watching, and you can see the link to an alternative platform to watch. And we do appreciate you watching. And I'm sorry to my diehard YouTube people, but they can't be reasoned with. So we are not going to give them the views and the clicks and the attention. And we're not going to risk getting the channel shut down every single time we do a show. That's the way it works with that. Hi, Edward from Sarasota. Looks like we're taking a few minutes to get the algorithms going here. I think Dave retweeted us, so we should be moving along there. And we're live on Rumble, and I have some great moderators over on Rumble. And so if you are watching on Rumble, please remember to hit the thumbs up on the Rumble channel. If you don't know how that works, you look at the video and go just directly under the video and hit the thumb. That will help us to get up in the algorithm. It helps us to move up in the feed. And if you are on Facebook watching, we ask that you hit the hearts and the thumbs up as you're watching, and then also comment in the show. Our disclaimer, we have a couple of disclaimers. One is, Dave and I are friends. We have conversations, and this is one of those conversations. It's not an interview. Sometimes you'll hear Dave talking, sometimes you'll hear me talking, and sometimes each of us takes a little longer than you might think we should, because we're having a conversation. And if that's not the style that you like, this is maybe not the place for you. And that's okay. You don't have to watch. The other thing is, I wanted to say, if you have an issue that's really important to you and you feel the need to post a lot of comments about that issue, especially if it's off topic, what I would encourage you to do is go to substack.com and start a channel on Substack, start a blog, and post all of that content for anyone to see. But please don't do it in our chat because we want to keep people on topic and honor the people who are here to listen and learn and participate on the topics that we're talking about. Is there anything you want to add, Dave? Ooh, do the
Yeah,
direct
if you
message.
feel inclined to drop your doctoral dissertation in a comment in the chat, you might get blocked. Just saying.
Yeah, something like that. So, and be nice to our moderators. Please don't argue with them. They're here to help. They're here to help keep other undesirable accounts from spamming the chat, and we really do appreciate them. So, if you see the little icon next to them on Rumble, please don't give them a hard time. We really do appreciate their help. And I think that's it. Oh, direct messages. We do have a direct message feature on Facebook, and typically, when you see a message from Mary Grace on Facebook, it is typically, like a response to something that you initiated. No one, Dave nor I, will ever message you or reply to your comments with links to any financial products or services, especially crypto. And just be clear on that, and be clear on the fact that on Rumble, both of us have verified accounts. That means when you see Mary Grace Media, it has a green triangle next to it. That means it's verified. Same thing on Facebook. There's a blue check on Mary Grace Media, and Dave is Praying Medic. Other channels are not us. So please report them and block them. Anything else?
Yes.
Okay.
We will never send you an email, a direct message talking about Nasara and QFS and the coming financial crash and all the other grifty stuff that people are out there spamming your email in your inbox about. We don't do that. We're not going to message you on any platform. I had a woman this morning say, "Hey, nice to see you here. We follow each other on TikTok." I commented back to her. I'm like, "I don't have a TikTok account." I'm like, "No, you're following somebody else." I have one account on Twitter. There are 1 million fake Praying Medic accounts on Twitter. Block them. I'm not going to message you on them. So I just want to reiterate. Yeah, we don't
Yeah.
private message people. We don't email people.
Exactly. And every now and then there will be something on my channel that is an opportunity for you, whether it's to support an affiliate provider or partner, and that will be done from me in a video format. For example, we'll take a break here and show a little bit of commercials and talk about the partners that we affiliate with. That's how you will find out from me that you have opportunities to purchase or participate in something that we're offering. It's not going to come in any other way. Okay, I think that's good. That's enough housekeeping. Now, in about 2.5 minutes, 2 minutes, I am going to shut down the YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, Liz, and anybody else that comes on YouTube, go in the show notes and click on the other link so that you can watch in a different spot that is censorship free. You can also go to my website, marygracemedia.com, and you have your choice of platforms that you can watch from. But YouTube is going to get the axe. So that's the way it goes over there. Looks like we've got over 300 people watching on Rumble. If you are on Rumble, please share this out. In just a minute, I'm going to check and see if we are in the featured live on Rumble. I hope that we are. Let's see if we can get up to 1,000 live viewers. We had that last time. We want to do that again. All right. So Dave, where do we start? Should we start with the most exciting news first?
We start wherever you want. That's your show.
Gosh, I don't even know where let me just think about this. Last night was historic in our country. Let's go ahead and start with that.
Okay.
Actually, no. I want to start with one thing that I think will blow the minds of some of the people that have continued to demand proof of faith, proof of Christianity from President Trump. Right? There's some people out there with a religious spirit that want to put President Trump through a religious litmus test, right? Did
Right.
he say it the right way? Did he pray
Right.
the salvation prayer publicly? Is he a Christian? Does he love God? Et cetera, et cetera. Never mind the fruit, right? Somehow they just want to put him through that test when they've never ever done that to any other Republican candidate or politician.
Right.
I mean, if we put the Bushes through that, yeah, maybe they'd be found wanting. So, but I wanted to read this for you because I was looking at uh, the book of Philippians. I was reading the book of Philippians, and one of the things that people use as an objection to President Trump is he just really shouldn't call people names. It's just not Christian. People shouldn't do that. He
The mean
shouldn't.
tweets.
He's so mean. And I'm saying it like that because that's how it sounds when you do that. um, so here's Paul writing to the Philippians. Listen to what he says. This is in the Philippians 3. He says, "Finally, my brothers, rejoice in the Lord. To write the same things to you is no trouble to me and is safe for you. Look out for the dogs. Look out for the evildoers. Look out for those who mutilate the flesh. For we are the circumcision who worship by the Spirit of God and glory in Christ Jesus and put no confidence in the flesh." And then he goes on to list his CV. I'm just going to read that again. Look out for the dogs.
The dogs.
The dogs. Look out for the dogs. He died like a dog. I'm just saying, it's almost like President Trump may have read the Bible.
Maybe.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
we're just going to leave that right there. Not to mention that Jesus called the Pharisees a brood of vipers
He
and
did.
whitewashed tombs. But hey, you know what? Yeah, Trump's a mean guy. He's mean. All right. And not to mention that he grew up in Queens and everybody had a nickname.
Can I
Yeah.
add on to something that you just said?
Please.
Just an observation. Trump takes a lot of criticism from people who they just seem to like having things that they can find to criticize Trump about. That's just their thing. They sort of go around looking for reasons to criticize Trump. and they scrutinize and they analyze his social media posts, what he says at rallies, looking for something that they can catch him in, that they can accuse him of being a divider, hateful, mean, whatever, right?
Yeah.
When Trump at the rally in Georgia, Atlanta, put Brian Kemp on blast, what was the reaction from all of the neocons and all of the conservatives, the anti-Trumpers? Oh my gosh, there's Trump again. He's attacking. What is he doing? He's in Georgia and he's attacking a very popular governor, and he's attacking and he's calling him names and he's threatening him. What? And I saw people on Twitter going, if he loses the election, this is why he's going to lose the election. He's trying to lose the election. He has no sense of decorum. He's a loudmouth. He's a loose cannon. He can't be trusted. He betrays his people who are supposed to be his friends. Why is he doing all this nonsense? Right?
Yeah.
All of those people came out of the woodwork to criticize Trump. And what happened the very next day and what happened yesterday, Kemp comes out and says, I have a full, complete endorsement of President Trump. He has got to win the election this year. Our country's at stake. All right.
It's almost like Trump has strategy.
It's
like he
almost
thinks he's
like
actually
Trump
thought things
knows
through.
something. It's like Trump knows something about how to interact with leaders in a way that forces them to work with him on his goals. And what it comes down to in this particular case, what it comes down to is Kemp is not an alpha male. Kemp is kind of a beta. And
he's not that smart.
He's compromised. He's a compromised politician. All right. What Kemp needed was Trump to threaten him with the fear of God and embarrass him and humiliate him in his own home court and get him to bend the knee.
Yeah.
And Kemp did the right thing. He bent the knee, and he basically came out and said, Trump is our leader. He's a leader of the party. I support him fully. He has my endorsement, and we're going to win Georgia for Trump. Okay.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that a lot of people don't understand how Trump works people, but Trump knows people's weaknesses and strengths. He knows their character. He knows he knows what is needed to get those people to work with him. And if you've been watching Trump for 8 years, you've seen this over and over and over again. How he seems to get kind of unhinged and do something out of character and
Mm-hmm.
something no other leader would do. And it ends up being a
Yeah.
fantastic success, and he
Yeah.
gets what he needs. And there's just a lot of people who don't understand that about Trump.
Yeah, and I think, these people who are what I would call a lot of them con Inc., right? Conservative Inc.
Right.
They they excel in certain things, sort of mainline type of reporting, and some of them are really good in the lane that they're in.
But they don't know Trump.
But they don't know Trump, and some of them have never liked him, but
Right.
they have risen to prominence on his coattails, just by being a conservative during the same era of Trump. They just happen to have produced, good content and good material alongside of the momentum of Trump.
Yep.
But when it comes to the way that Trump works and his operational style, which is highly effective, it's like they have blind spots and they are lacking all pattern recognition.
Yep.
Because if you have an ability, with pattern recognition, you can start to put together the pieces and see patterns of the way that Trump operates. And that's something you do, that's something I do, that's something that a lot of the Anons do, and they have different areas of gifting in that. And and sometimes people get mad because I'll say things about Trump and they'll say, "Oh, you're just a cult member.
You're a cult
You
member.
worship
You're a
him."
sycophant. You can't
Right?
think for
And
yourself.
I'm like, "No."
Everything that Trump does, you justify everything he does.
Right, I'm
It's
like,
like, you
"No,
know what?
it's not that." Like, when he does if he
No.
does things, I will criticize him on things, and I will question him on certain things, but what I'm trying to do is explain to people how he operates based on what I've observed. I'm just giving you an observation. You can take it and do what you want, but this is my observation. This is not me
Right.
worshiping a person. I worship Jesus Christ. I don't worship Trump. But I also believe that President Trump has been put here for this time to be an instrument of God, and that he has been willing to participate. That's the key. There are other people that I believe God has tapped for certain roles who were not willing to participate, or maybe they stepped into the arena and they became compromised. We have seen that many times with the Republican Party, and we've seen it play out in the past few years with certain people that we really thought were Team Freedom, who maybe it just became too much for them. Maybe the lawfare became too much for them. Maybe the threats to their children and their families became more than they can bear. We don't know the inner workings of how these people came to these decisions, but what we do know is that Trump has neither bent nor broken under the same or more pressure than any of these other people have, and that is why we are still behind him. It's not because he's perfect. We didn't say he's perfect. It's because of the integrity that continues to show up again and again and again. Going back to our founding fathers, they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. And that brings us to the next guy who was up on stage with Trump last night, who came out to a rock star's welcome, and that was RFK Jr. Trump has never done that for anybody that's come out on stage with him. Has he?
Nope. He is
Okay.
not at a rally, that's for sure.
Yeah, let's talk
That
about
was
this.
a one-off. I've watched almost every rally for the
Yeah.
last 8 years. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, amazing. And I want to spend a lot of time. I want to camp out on uh this team RFK Trump
Okay.
alliance, the Unity Party, which is what they were referring to. I don't think they're starting a new party, but they're rebranding the Republican Party as the Unity Party.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about this
It's
because
time for it.
it's way overdue. I listened to RFK's speech. You listened to it. You said, "Oh, wow." Mrs. Medic made you listen to it, and you're
She
glad you
did. She
did.
listened to it live. I was busy doing some other things. And she told me this morning when we're having coffee, she says, before you go on with Mary, you need to listen to his entire speech.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yeah.
okay, I'll do that. It was amazing.
And I just I want to unpack some of it. This is time now to my YouTubers. We're shutting it down. We'll meet you over on the other platforms in just a second. Okay, so Dave, um, one of the things that happened right out of the gate with RFK Jr. after he delivered his speech was that the Kennedy clan, many in the Kennedy clan, uh, disowned him. You want to talk about that?
They did. Yeah. So, so for those of you who are not familiar with what happened, um, I'll give you a little bit of backstory. President Trump, again, once again, on the campaign trail, when Trump was still and Kennedy's he was vying for a spot on the debates, presidential debates,
Yeah.
and Trump was pushing back on the idea that Kennedy should be involved in the debates because he uh, didn't have enough of a following, didn't have enough popularity. His numbers were kind of low, and so Trump was talking crap about Kennedy a lot in the rallies. He said that Kennedy was even further left than Biden or Bernie Sanders. He basically called Kennedy a communist. He's into the Green New scam.
Yeah.
He's anti-Second Amendment. He's
Yeah.
this, he's that. Trump really opened up both barrels on Kennedy several months ago during a couple of his rallies and let people know that Kennedy was, because there was a lot of people, I think, in our camp who were secretly hoping that Trump was going to pick RFK as his running mate for vice president. I was like, that's just not a good idea. He fundamentally, on a policy issue, policy by policy, especially Second Amendment, the Green New scam, and some other issues, Trump and Kennedy are just too far apart to be running mates. So I was asking people to kind of pump the brakes on Kennedy. I've never been a big fan of Kennedy's, honestly, and you can hate me if you want. I've just his core values are not my core values. My core values are constitutional. We have to support the Constitution, all of the amendments, all of our rights and liberties. And I think RFK is there on some of the issues. He's just not, like on Second Amendment.
Hmm.
Kennedy's all for the First Amendment. He is not a Second Amendment supporter, and that is a
Right.
huge thing for me. And by the way,
Yeah.
for those of you who did not hear, yesterday, a federal judge in Kansas dropped the charges, dismissed the case on a woman who was charged with having a fully automatic machine gun. And the judge said, he basically questioned whether full automatic weapons bans are a violation of the Second Amendment. If that case
Wow.
gets appealed and it goes to an appellate court and goes to Supreme Court may have to rule on whether full auto guns, weapons,
Wow.
are bans are a violation of the Second Amendment. I'd love to see that case go to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Just as a little rabbit trail. Back to Kennedy. So Trump has been blasting RFK on the campaign trail, and then it sort of what RFK tells a story about what happened after Trump was shot. he there's a woman, no, there's a guy named Kelly who
Callie
is,
means. Callie means.
yeah, has been mediating, talking to both Trump and RFK about chronic health issues, and
Hmm.
so they started talking, and then uh, Trump calls Kennedy, and they talk. Kennedy comes down to Mar-a-Lago. They talk some more. They talk for several days. Trump's inner circle, his trusted advisors, his kids get involved, and they decide, you know what, we have some differences, we have some issues that we don't agree on, but we have a lot of issues we do agree on.
Yeah.
And so uh, it seems like at that point, Trump probably just offered Kennedy, look, I will create a position in my administration for you if you will help me win, beat the Democrats. Well, let's team up together and let's beat the Democrats. And you guys can still have your issues. We'll have our differences, but let's team up and work together on the issues that where
Yeah.
we have commonality. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the setup for what happened yesterday.
And I think this is that's a good backstory, and RFK Jr. explains some of that in the speech that he gave. And I want to touch on the three pillars that RFK is passionate about and that they came to an agreement on as a result of these talks. The first one is the censorship industrial complex, putting an end to that. Some people call it the deep state, some people call it the administrative state. It is a combination of those agencies leveraging the social media platforms, obviously the legacy media. So that's what he's talking about. And he does go into detail in his speech about the types of censorship that he's experienced as during his campaign. And he made a point of saying, I'm not making this personal because what I've experienced really is something that affects everyone. And if we're talking about safeguarding our democracy, I don't like the way they use that word democracy, but I think he means the democratic process. They
Yeah.
just shortened it. Uh, he said, this is not good for anybody. So it's the censorship. The other thing is the war in Ukraine. And I think that anybody who doesn't understand quite yet the finer points of why the war in Ukraine is a bad idea for everybody involved, except the neocons and the warmongers and the military industrial complex, you definitely should listen to his speech because he does a really good job of outlining the underlying issues, how we got into this, and the reasoning that Congress and the politicians have used for keeping us in the war. He's also outlined what Kamala would do as a president, not only to keep us in that war, but to get us into future wars. He did a great job of explaining that. The third piece of this is something that I believe is the main impetus for getting him and Trump on the same team. And that is saving our children and future generations from the absolute cataclysmic health crisis that is happening in this country. And if something isn't done, we do not have a country. And he goes into great detail about this. And that is where Callie Means comes into the conversation. That's where Casey Means, the sister of Callie Means, comes in. There is a book that was written by I think by either Callie or Casey. The parents named them, the parents probably call them Callie Casey because they got them mixed up all the time. It's called Good Energy. The book is called Good Energy, and it's about the metabolic process and how our health should be governed, and how the big ag, big food, big pharmaceutical complex has conspired really to destroy the health of our multiple generations. Really important topic. Um, and so he goes into that into detail, and that is really the thrust of his speech. And so he said, if for no other reason we want to unify, he said, what did he say? He said, "Let us unify, let our concern and our care for the children outweigh our hatred of one another."
Yep.
And that really is the crux of what he was saying. You still need to go listen to it, even though I just gave an amazing summary.
Listen to it. He's
Go.
got it on his Twitter timeline. If you just go to his X account, it's his pinned tweet. Go to about 41 minutes into the video, and
Okay.
that's where his speech starts. And it's about 45 minutes long. Very, very good. He's very articulate. I mean, he's got some speech issues, so he's a little hard to listen to, but it was just a good message.
Yes.
And I can understand after hearing him speak, I can totally understand why Trump would be interested in taking on these issues. I'm sure that Trump may not have been aware of the health issues, especially with the children. The the morbidity and obesity and prediabetes and all of the diseases that kids have, autism. I'm sure Trump is aware of some of this.
Yeah.
A lot of people forget. A lot of people forget that Trump actually had a very heated conversation with Ben Carson in 2015 about vaccines and autism. That has been buried by the media. In one of the very first, it might have been the very first debate. And let's see, I don't know if it wouldn't have been 2015, it would have been 2016, because that's when the debate started. Trump and Ben Carson go at it, and Trump is talking about how he believes that vaccines are related to autism. And Ben Carson calls him out and says, there is no evidence to support that. And Trump goes, yes, there is. Trump is not stupid when it comes to healthcare and vaccines and childhood illnesses. I think that Trump has sort of downplayed some of those issues over the last 8 years because he's taking enough incoming fire from the media and politicians already.
Yeah.
That's not, I don't think that's a key issue that he feels he can stand on right now. He can certainly give a platform to someone like RFK who can talk articulately about it and has a group of people and has done the research and is connected to people who can put the right message out there about that issue.
Yes, I think so too. And I think the other thing that Trump does, this reminds me of another topic that I'm watching what Trump is doing with this. And I think what you're describing is something that happens a lot in business, and that is that when you start a business, you start at a certain level and then you scale it. And you make plans for scaling it, but if you try to scale too fast, it could collapse under its own weight, and because you just get too big too fast. And we've
Yep.
seen that with businesses. And one of the things, as a businessman, as a builder, Trump, I think, understands the concept of scaling from a pragmatic standpoint, but also just from a psychological standpoint. He gets that when you're bringing people together in a cause, especially if they're from ideological differences, you have to scale in a way that is comfortable for people. And this is really critical as we go into this election. And there's a topic that I think a couple of topics that really frustrate and frighten people. And they think that maybe Trump is not going to come through. There's two that come to mind. One is immigration, and another one is taxes. And I will give you examples of this. President Trump, especially now that many, many independents are coming in, on the topic of immigration, he has to be very careful with his language. If he goes full scale isolationist, there are many people who will refuse to vote for him on principle. If he goes, if he doesn't find a middle ground of talking points, he will lose a lot of people. And if he doesn't get in office, none of it matters because we don't have a country. So he has to really gauge his wording and his talk And so, for example, when he talks about letting people in on work visas, when he talks about getting people here, giving people green cards when they get out of college, things like that. Don't take everything he says at face value because it will drive you crazy. He
Right.
also does a lot of A/B testing. When he throws things out like that, he's waiting for feedback. So you actually have a voice if you're especially if you're on X. If you voice your opinion when he puts out things like that, he and his team actually there's a high likelihood that they will see and take your opinion to heart.
Yep.
Don't just run away and take your toys and don't play. The
I
other
saw
one is
some, yeah, I saw some of our non-friends expressing some concerns over a few things that Trump said during the last week
okay.
during the rallies.
Yeah.
And like you said, we've discussed this before.
Yeah.
Whenever you hear Trump talk about something for the very first time that he's never mentioned before in a rally or a speech, or if he's only mentioned it kind of in a general sense and no specifics, there's a very good chance that what he's doing is he's throwing the subject out there and he's taking the temperature of the room.
Yeah.
He's trying to find out, how does the base feel about this issue, about my position on this
Yeah.
issue? If he puts an issue out there and gets a lot of pushback on that issue, sometimes he will change his position. Trump is not really an ideologue in the sense that a lot of people, a lot of leaders in particular, are very tied into their ideologies. Trump is very much a pragmatist.
Yeah.
Trump has goals, things he needs to get done, things he wants to accomplish, and he's continually trying to figure out what is the best way to accomplish, the most efficient way to accomplish this goal. What ideology do I need to put out there to inspire people to support me in getting this thing done? So don't get too locked into something that Trump says on an ideological framework, because that may change.
Yeah.
On the issue of immigration, really good example.
Mhm.
I think that Trump is experimenting and tossing out some ideas on immigration that are a little bit more controversial, because what this is, again, people who don't understand Trump, who have not paid attention to him over the last 8 years and don't understand his methods, his tactics, his strategies. There's all these people commenting about Trump. He made a mistake. He flubbed this. He shouldn't have said
Yeah.
that. He can't have this position. Like, look, the guy knows what he's doing. Just relax. One of the
Yeah.
things that people don't understand about this election cycle as compared to 2020 or 2016 is Trump already has an established base of support.
Yeah.
A lot of the things he's saying this year, he's trying to expand his base of support.
Yeah.
He's trying to reach some Democrats. He's trying to reach some independents. He's going to be saying things a little differently and a little more outside the box this year because he has to reach a wider audience. He's trying to bring in more people, and that's going to change the content of his messages. So,
Yeah.
like, wasn't there a post on True Social about it? He said, I'm going to be a great president for reproductive rights or something like that. There's a ton of pushback on that. All right.
Yeah.
And people, and a lot, and the hard line, especially the very religious conservatives, are pissed off as hell that Trump will not back an absolute abortion ban, that he's content to leave the issue of abortion at the state level,
Yep.
and he does not support a nationwide abortion ban.
Yep.
And there's a lot of religious conservatives who cannot stand that, and they keep yapping and yapping and yapping about that, and how that this Trump fundamentally has something wrong with him because he will not back an abortion ban. And like, I get their perspective. In a perfect world, that's what Trump would do. But again, Trump is trying to reach a large plurality of people so that he can win the White House and end these wars and get the country back on track. And it doesn't make any sense for him to back a national abortion ban. It will not pass Congress. It would not get through the Senate. And it would probably, and the Supreme Court has already ruled on it.
Mhm.
So I hear these people criticizing Trump over these various issues, and I'm just like, look, Trump is a pragmatist. He has to do what is going to get him elected, what is going to
Yeah.
give him the best chance without compromising too much.
Yeah.
He has to have the right messaging to bring in those independents, to bring in the disaffected Democrats into the tent, and that's gonna give his campaign a different feel this year.
Mhm. I think so too, and when you talk about Democrats, when you talk about independents, this is really important, and I want to say to his base, many of whom are listening right now that RFK Jr. is on board, what I want people to understand, what you're gonna see is, and if you've been on X in the last 12, 15 hours, you already see this. There are RFK supporters who some of whom have sworn that they would go to their grave never voting for Trump. Those people are now asking, they're asking openly, Tell me about Trump. I'm here and I'm listening."
Yep.
And so this is an opportunity for you to extend a hand of unity to people who are open to changing their position. This is not a time for name calling, especially these crazy names like libtards and things like that. Let's stop. Just stop doing that. One of the tactics I recommend is just listing some policy things, but also just asking questions. What do you like about RFK, and why are you in his camp? Tell us some things that you like. And then it opens the conversation. Oh, well, did you know that Trump did prison reform? Did you know? Like things that you think would appeal to the more liberal mindset. And that brings me to the taxation thing. All right. When
Hey,
Trump is,
real quick before we
yeah,
get into taxation,
yeah.
Denise and I were listening to some spaces on X last night, and we were kind of shocked because there was on these spaces there were a lot of RFK supporters
Mhm.
coming into conservative spaces, and there were conservative Trump supporters going into RFK spaces, and we were jumping back and forth between
Yeah,
these spaces, and there was so much camaraderie and so much goodwill. The RFK supporters were very, very grateful for all of the Trump supporters who were welcoming them with open arms, who were
good.
listening to them, who were hearing them out, who are helping them understand what is this Trump thing about. Like you said, this is a really good opportunity for us to do some ambassadorship and to let these people know the truth. Look, what you've heard from the mainstream media about Trump, most of it isn't true. So started some fundamental policy issues, things that Trump is, what he's really about and what he's not about. And we have really big opportunities right now to build a bigger coalition.
Yes,
So
and yeah.
taxation.
Yeah, so taxation is a good example. President Trump, I believe that President Trump actually wants to get rid of all personal taxation, income tax.
Yep.
I believe that he wants to take a hammer to the Fed. There's a lot that he wants to do. However, again, that's an extreme position. And that is a position that more conservative people really wouldn't understand.
Right.
Um, and then when it comes to liberals, a lot of them want to tax the wealthy. They think that that's the problem. They want to tax the 1%. And so if I were President Trump trying to reach the RFK base, the more liberal base, many of whom are Bernie Sanders people,
Yeah.
um, who migrated to RFK, if I wanted to reach them, I would say, "Hey, you know what? Let's abolish taxation on tips." Because guess what? A lot of those people are middle to lower middle class who work in the service industry. It's and President Trump runs hotels. He runs rest. He has service industry properties, he understands how tips work. He understands how taxation works. He understands at a very real level how that affects regular people who work for tips and who work for a week to week paycheck. Unlike most of these politicians, he sees the bottom line. He sees how it affects them because he writes the checks, he signs the checks to those people, and he sees how much is being taken out for the tips. So if you're going to scale an idea, you're going to start it small with one sector of the working class, and then you're going to float it out there. Notice he was in Vegas yesterday, or it was yesterday or the day before, talking at a restaurant to people about banning the tax on tips. It's very strategic.
He
And
he
so,
announced he announced that
yeah,
in Vegas at a rally a couple of weeks ago where he first brought it up. He
yeah,
was in Vegas where that whole city is run off of restaurants and hotels and
yeah.
taxi drivers, and that's the strategic place to drop that message.
Yeah, and he has a property there, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of his employees are there. And one thing that I think people still don't understand about Trump, because the media has convinced them that he's a racist and a xenophobe. If you go to a Trump property, your mind will be blown because the staff, almost all of the staff who work for Trump are international, and many of them speak multiple languages. His general manager from the Trump Hotel in D.C., who is now the general manager of Doral in Miami, is French, and so he speaks multiple languages. He has a depth of experience in high end hospitality, and Trump handpicked him to be the GM for the DC property, and then he handpicked him and asked him to move to Doral to bring Doral up to an even higher level of quality. Mikhail is his name. I've talked to him a number of times. Lovely, lovely person. But this is the thing, um, so many of his staff are international, and everyone that I've ever talked to that works for him loves working for him, and for Eric and the rest of the family. But it's people don't get that. And so he has an understanding of the working class down to the dishwashers, the caddies, the people that, the tips that they get in a given day could make their rent. That's what he understands. And people don't get that.
Yeah, there's a couple other things that people don't get about Trump's policies, his
Yeah.
proposals. So Trump is again proposing a reciprocal tax. Right. So he's like, look, if China is going to tariff our goods, we're going to
Mm,
put a tariff on their goods. It's a reciprocal tax. Whatever they put on our goods, we're going to put on theirs. And so you have these economists who are out there saying, well, that's just going to cause inflation. That's just going to hurt the end consumer.
right.
That's just going to cause people to have to spend more money, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. Trump has already done
Blah, blah,
this.
blah.
This is not something new. This is something that Trump has already
Yeah.
done
Yeah.
in his first administration, and it worked out pretty darn well.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
what Trump is not going to say publicly is on the issue of taxation. If this is an if Trump does actually plan on either severely reducing or getting rid of the personal income tax, he would have to do it along with gutting about 80% of federal spending. He would have to go into all
Okay.
these bloated, corrupt, useless government bureaucratic agencies and cut personnel, close the buildings, repurpose everything, and skinny down the government massively. Now, Trump is not going to say that prior to the election. He's not going to tell the swamp, in Washington, most of you who are working
Your
in
days
government
are
right now,
numbered.
some 20 million government employees, most of you are going to be unemployed when I take office. in 4 months. He's
Yeah.
not going to come out and say that. However, comma, I would totally expect that after he has been through 4 years of hell with the DC bureaucracy, I would expect if Trump gets elected, if he gets inaugurated, and if he's able to assemble the people that he wants around him, people like Kash Patel. Kash has talked about going in and just gutting the FBI, the DOJ, CIA, Ken Paxton. If Ken Paxton or someone like him ends up as Attorney General, Ken Paxton has basically said we need to just burn the FBI to the ground and start over again.
Yeah.
The people who Trump listens to, those people, they're all about massively downsizing government.
Yeah.
So on the issue of personal income tax and all this other stuff, I would just wait and see what happens. Don't get out ahead of your skis, because Trump may have some surprises in store if he gets elected, if we can get him inaugurated, and if his people can actually come in and take over, take the wrecking ball to DC. And I'll end it there.
Awesome. Awesome. I think this is a good time for us to take a little break. And I finally got one of my pictures to upload. So, okay, this is a great picture. I just want to show everybody. This is iconic. I love it. This is when RFK came out last night to a rock star's welcome at Trump's rally in Arizona. Okay, so as we take a little break, don't go too far, but do take a second if you need to, adjust and visit the loo or refresh your beverage, whatever it is. But remember that this channel, Mary Grace Media, is listener supported. And that means that we don't have sponsors who pay us. We actually have affiliates who pay when you buy something. And so if you listen to the commercial and you think, oh, that's wonderful, I may get around to that, it doesn't actually help. What we need you to do is
go buy some stuff.
Go buy stuff. Yeah. And so, if you've got weddings to shop for, if you've got, if you're prepping, if you're sending kids back to school, we're going to feature our friends at MyPillow and our friends at Grid Down, Chow Down. So you're going to be able to stock up on some good stuff. So hang out for just a second. Anytime you go shopping at these affiliates that I'm featuring, the promo code is Mary Grace. Everybody remember that. Mary Grace, not hard. Mary Grace promo code. So here we go. Hang out for just a second and we will be back. Don't touch that dial. Haha.
Listen, we're finally bringing the most requested offer ever. Get the queen size premium MyPillow, now only $19.98. MyPillow is made with patented adjustable fill. It adjusts to your exact individual needs regardless of your sleep position. It helps keep your neck aligned and holds its shape all night long so you get the best sleep of your life. But that's not all. Get our 6-piece kitchen or bath towel sets only $25. Our brand new mattress topper as low as $69.98. Get our famous MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $25 and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get huge discounts on all MyPillow products, including the premium queen size MyPillow, only $19.98. That's the lowest price ever. Don't delay, order today. From all of us here at MyPillow, thanks America!
Okay, in case you need it, here's the promo code right here. Scan it with your QR scanner. It is promo code Mary Grace. MyPillow.com, promo code Mary Grace. And we hope that you shop from them, that you don't go to these other stores to buy your sheets, towels, dog beds, pet beds. People don't always realize that MyPillow.com has an incredible array and variety of products, including the pillows. The pillows really are just the jumping off point. Once you start to buy their towels, their kitchen towels, their sheets, all of it is just fantastic. So please do that. And now stick around because I want you to see our friends at griddownchowdown.com. They are the ones who give us this incredible freeze-dried beef. So when you see this, it comes in a package like this. There's also a bigger pack. This is a pound of ground beef. It's not jerky. It doesn't have any seasoning added. When you reconstitute it, it is fresh ground beef that you can use to cook with. So check this out. I love these guys because they are a local company out in Oklahoma and they work with local ranchers and farmers. Here you go. Check this out.
This is my brother, and I'm Nace, and we're at the Grid Down Chowdown, and this is Larry, who is a local rancher that we've partnered with. Now, Larry, you've been ranching for over 4 generations, is that correct?
That's correct. I'm 3rd generation, my son's 4th generation, and I've got some grandkids that are 5th generation.
Man, that's awesome.
We've been here for quite a while, yeah.
All right, now, Larry, your cattle is grass-fed, grass-finished, and pasture-raised, just like God intended them to be.
Yes, because I want to know what's in that animal,
Right.
what it's been fed, and so the only way to do that is for us to keep it all natural, just like God has done it for years and years and years, thousands of years.
How has partnering up with us helped you and your ranch?
Well, it's allowed us to develop a market that we didn't have before, one that can get directly to the consumer, and that's great.
And just remember, more importantly, with every package that you buy, we put a salvation track in there. So from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you for allowing us to do what we believe that God has us here to do. And just remember, God loves you. He really does.
Amen.
Okay, here's the QR code again. You can scan it, griddownchowdown.com. And one of the things I love about this is that if you are concerned about these big corporations buying all the land and taking over farming, this is a way to push back against that. If you buy directly from griddownchowdown.com, you are getting a product that is grown right there on the ranch that you saw in the video. And so put your money where your mouth is and support these local companies. This is a product that will stay shelf stable for up to 25 years. You can't really beat that. Or you can just use it for your everyday cooking. It's up to you. Here we go. We've got Dave back on camera, and we're going to bring him back here in just a second, and then we will get back to our conversation. Hi, Dave. Welcome back.
Hey, Mary.
To all of my listeners, this is our friend Dave Hayes, Praying Medic, and we are having a conversation today, Conspiracy of Truth, the Fight, Fight, Fight edition, episode 18. This is our 18th edition of Conspiracy of Truth, and I think that's amazing. And if you've missed the other episodes, you can go back and find them. It's easiest to find them on Rumble. When you go to Rumble, you will find those. Dave, we were talking a lot about Trump because we are in the middle of election season.
Yep.
We've been talking about Trump's style and the way that he handles different topics. And we were talking about the finance in particular. I want to come back to that, but I want to ask you one question about RFK before we get off of that topic. There's something that Robert Kennedy said last night that I thought was curious, and that is when he talked about his campaign, he made it clear that he was not canceling or ending his campaign,
Right.
but that he was suspending his campaign in key battleground states. And
Yep.
then he explained why. He wants to pull the vote from Kamala and push the vote for Trump. However, he said there is a likelihood if they end up in an electoral tie, which could happen, then there is a contingent election and he would still have a chance of winning.
Right.
Did you catch that?
Yep, I did.
Okay. Can you explain that to our listeners?
Sure.
Okay.
So I would imagine RFK's people and Trump's people got together and they did some brainstorming and said, okay, what would be the best way that we could approach this transition period? Would it be best to have him withdraw from the election altogether? Would it be better for him to stay in the election in some states and all that? So they did some, I'm sure they sat down and, they did some wargaming. And I think they came up with the concept that it would be best to try to take away votes in states, take away votes from the Democrat in key states. Number one, to reduce the Democrat candidates' overall vote total, i.e. the popular vote, right? So there's two things you're looking at. You're looking at the Electoral College and you're looking at the popular vote. So if RFK stays in, it stays on the ballot in certain states, he can, in blue states primarily, he can draw votes away from the Democrat in states that it's not really going to matter, other than it'll draw down the popular vote total. And that's kind of a pride issue. Like Hillary Clinton will forever, tell everybody she beat Donald Trump in the popular vote. Well, but it's the Electoral College that matters, and you're the president. So that's one thing to think about. And then they decided, I think that the campaigns together decided the critical part of this puzzle is going to be not taking votes away from Trump in the swing states.
Yeah.
Right? So Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, potentially North Carolina, Arizona, and Nevada. In those states, the RFK campaign doesn't want to draw votes away from Trump. And all the polling numbers have always shown that if RFK were not going to run, the vast majority of his supporters would vote for Trump. I think it's like 75%,
Okay.
80%.
Okay.
It could be as much as 80. I've seen some numbers say that 85% of RFK voters would vote for Trump if they couldn't vote for RFK.
Okay.
So in the swing states where it's going to be really tight, RFK is removing his name off of the ballots in all of those states so that people cannot vote for him in those states. They're going to have a choice between either Trump or Kamala, but not him. And of course, there will be the Green Party candidates, Jill Stein and all the other people who they generally bring in less than 1%. The polling to date has shown RFK with about a 5 to 6% vote margin in almost all the swing states. So again, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, RFK brings in about 5 to 6% of the vote.
Okay.
That's enough to give Trump the victory in those states. If he gets the majority, let's say if he gets 80 to 85% of those voters, where RFK will not be on the ballot, that's enough to give Trump the win. If most of Kennedy's voters go over to Trump. So that's the strategy. And I think there's another question you asked that I don't know that I have the answer to.
Contingent election.
Contingent election. Yeah. Oh gosh. Well, this brings up a subject I wanted to talk about, but I didn't really want to talk about the contingent election. The contingent election, if there is no clear majority in the general election, the Constitution has several provisions. There's the Electoral Count Act, and there's the 12th Amendment that come into play where the vote could actually go to the House of Representatives in a contingent election, and then it becomes the representatives it depends on how you read it. But it's essentially, it becomes an election based on the representation of Democrats and Republicans in the legislature. And conservatives, Republicans have a big advantage in the legislature as far as delegates and controlling states. So it's likely in a contingent election, Trump would actually be the winner if it went to a contingent election. I don't know that that's going to happen.
Okay.
That's what RFK is referring to.
Yeah.
Theoretically, then
Mm-hmm.
he could receive votes from anyone. I don't think that's a real possibility. It's a hypothetical, but I don't think it's a real possibility.
Mm-hmm.
I have major concerns about the general election.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about that.
If you want to just segue into that real quick.
Well, you are of the mind that there may not be an election. General Flynn says this every time I talk to him.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the potential sentencing of Trump. Do you want to bring that up before or after you talk about whether there's going to be an election? Does it come into play? Does it come into play?
Potentially. Let's talk about the potential sentencing of Trump coming up on September 18th.
Yeah.
So your favorite president and mine, who is not the commander-in-chief right now, and don't at me with your comments on social media, because Trump is not the commander-in-chief and he's not the president right now. And if you're listening to people like Derek Johnson and all the other LARPing fake intelligence insiders out there who are assuring you that Trump really is in control and he really is a commander-in-chief and he's really controlling everything, do yourself a favor and stop listening to those people and take a dose of reality and realize that we're about to lose our country if we don't get this thing straightened out. Trump is, in listening to various commentators, people like Andrew McCarthy and former federal prosecutors and former judges, everyone has their take, their spin on what they think is going to happen to Trump on September 18th. I don't know what's going to happen to Trump on September 18th. He's going to go in front of Judge Merchan, and he has been found guilty of 34 charges that were misdemeanors that got bumped up to felonies because of some shifty little footwork with the prosecutor. And Judge Merchan has a couple of options. He could, on its face, right? It looks like Merchan and the prosecutor have set this thing up with these felony charges so they can hammer Trump with a very severe sentence, potentially 10, 15, 20, 30 years in prison.
Yeah.
Potentially. It's 34 felony counts. And why did they jump through all the hoops to take these misdemeanors and turn them into felonies? If they're not going to impose a stiff sentence, right? That's my thinking. So I anticipate that Merchan is going to impose a very stiff sentence on President Trump. Some people have said that Merchan could put Trump in jail immediately. Go directly to jail. Do not go past go. Do not collect $200. Go to jail. Will that happen? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There's this issue of security and safety.
Right.
Are they going to send Trump to Rikers Island, where, he could end up like Jeffrey Epstein?
Mm-hmm.
I think that the Secret Service might have an issue with that. Some have said that if Merchan decides to sentence him and not allow him out on bail, he'll probably end up in home detention with the Secret Service basically monitoring him 24/7.
Mm-hmm. Living at Mar-a-Lago,
right? Other very, experienced professional people have said, no, Trump is going to be out on bail because as soon as Merchan sentences him, Trump will then probably post bail, assuming Merchan allows that, and then he's going to appeal it. And pending the appeal, he'll be out on bail. Right? I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know which expert is right. They all have different opinions.
Right. Well, also there's the question of the window, which is about 5 weeks from the election, 6 weeks from the actual election.
6
And
weeks-ish,
is
yeah.
there a prohibition? Well, okay, we know that the Democrats don't actually follow any protocol or anything that would be normal. But
Unless it's to their advantage.
in a normal election, isn't there some sort of restriction or prohibition against doing anything like that to the front runner candidate? I mean,
Yeah.
right?
DOJ, DOJ has an unofficial, it's not a statute. It is a policy
Like
of
a
the
protocol?
DOJ that they do not engage in prosecutions of political candidates within like 6 months prior to an election. But this is not the DOJ.
Right.
This is a municipal court.
Okay.
And they're not beholden to DOJ policy.
And you think that do you think that the Supreme Court would get involved at all?
Nope.
Okay.
Nah.
And
Doubt
this brings me to something interesting.
Although,
Yeah.
oh gosh, this is such a complex issue.
Although.
Right. When the Supreme Court issued their ruling on immunity, they took the case in DC that was with Judge Chutkan, and they told her, look, you're back to square one. You need to think about having an evidentiary hearing and allow the defense, Trump, to make his case that these charges are covered by presidential immunity and that they should be dismissed, right? So that process is going to happen, but that process should also happen with this trial under Judge Merchan, because the testimony, what the Supreme Court ruled is not just that certain acts are covered by presidential immunity and can't be charged criminally, but also certain evidence can't be allowed into the record in a criminal prosecution because the evidence is protected by immunity. And Judge Merchan allowed a lot of evidence and testimony into the record that is probably protected by presidential immunity.
Okay.
So on appeal, this thing is going to get flipped on its head and Merchan is going to get excoriated.
Okay.
What Merchan should do is go back and revisit all these issues before he issues a sentence. That's probably not going to happen.
Right, because he's under orders to get the optics of
he
a
is under
conviction.
orders to make sure that
Yeah.
Trump is wearing, an orange jumpsuit prior to the election. We're going into uncharted territory here. If that hasn't been made obvious.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that, the optics, because I think that some people are missing the importance of the optics. In my heart, I know that Trump is not guilty. In most of people listening, you know in your heart, this is all smoke and mirrors. It's BS. It's all made up. They're flaunting and flouting the rule of law. We know that. The issue here really isn't about whether Trump is guilty or not. The issue is that the Democrats and their armies, their troll armies, have a series of talking points and optics and memes that allow them to discourage and to get inside the heads of the people who love Trump, especially into the people who love him, but also to have an effective influence operation, which is part of the information war. And that is to
Right.
besmirch him, to smear his good name, to paint him as a rapist and a felon.
Yep.
And these are the ways that they're doing it, and I have seen it coming into my Facebook. By the way, all of the nastiest trolls from Twitter 1.0 that realized that they didn't have a home on Elon's Twitter are now on Facebook. And so they're just peppering the feeds with these talking points and optics. And they haven't gotten any better at memes. They have the worst memes. I mean, I would actually let some of them stay if they had decent memes, but it's just insta block all day long. Because they have the worst memes. But the point is, for people who are witnessing this, who are seeing these talking points and the optics, they want to get inside your head. They want you to be demoralized and beaten down by the constant refrain: felon, rapist, felon, all the things that they are. They want you to get beaten down, and maybe even to cast a little bit of doubt about President Trump. Well, maybe it is. I mean, he got convicted. He got convicted of 34 counts. And the trolls aren't big on details. They're just big on talking points. They've been given their marching orders. They've been giving the phrases to repeat over and over again in the information war, and that's what they do. And if you recognize that, you're not going to argue with them. You're not going to feed them. You're going to block them. And then the question becomes, how do you counter those optics and that narrative with your friends and family? Because it's the low information voters that have been subject to this narrative and this set of optics that really is more of a concern. And one of the recommendations I have really is to pray. Just pray that God would open people's eyes to the truth, and that he would shut the mouths of the mockers, because it really is. It's just the liars and the mockers that are trying to get into the heads and imaginations of people we're just trying to stay the course. It's exhausting.
It is, and you're absolutely right. And there is, for the people who have been, with Trump for the long haul, this stuff isn't going to get into our heads. But for the new people, for the RFK supporters, for the disaffected Democrats and independents who have seen, what's happened with the Democrat Party, they've watched this shift to not just progressivism, but to almost full-on communism. And they're like, okay, this, seeing the abortion center set up, a trailer set up outside the DNC. There's a lot of people who are kind of soul searching right now. And they're weighing this issue. Could I actually cast a vote for Trump? And what these morons, these trolls on social media want to do is they're going to keep hammering them with, he's a felon, he's a rapist, how could you vote for this man?
Yeah.
They're going to try to discourage those people from voting.
Yeah.
And look, if you have access to the information about E. Jean Carroll and what happened in that case, and the fact that Trump wasn't convicted of rape, if you have access to the information about the payments to Stormy Daniels that were made by Trump's attorney, Cohen, it sounds like Cohen took his own initiative to make these payments just to make Stormy Daniels shut up, which is a common thing that happens with celebrities. And they basically accused him of a bookkeeping error because it was supposed to be classified as a campaign contribution, not a personal. And because Trump was trying to cover up a crime, that's another crime. That's a conspiracy, which is a felony. So they took the misdemeanors and they raised it to a felony. And each check that was written out became a separate charge. I mean, the whole thing is kind of ridiculous. If you look into the details of all of these accusations, it's clear that they're manufacturing guilt out of normal activities. And in many cases with E. Jean Carroll, her so-called story about being raped by Trump 35 years ago in a dressing room in a department store, it's just not a believable story. But the media and the politicians continue hammering their little refrain about he's a rapist, he's a convicted felon. You just have to realize that, look, these people are dishonest, and what the deep state and the Democrats, but I repeat myself, and the mainstream media, all they want is to retain power and control over our country and over the world. And they will do anything to stay in power. After seeing what Trump did with his 4 years in the White House, they are not going to let him get back in that White House if they can stop him. Because they know that he'll come in and he'll gut the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, he'll gut the corruption. He will literally reform Washington physically, spiritually, emotionally. He's talking about federalizing DC, getting rid of all the graffiti, getting rid of all the crap, renovating all the buildings, basically giving DC a facelift. Trump plans on a total renovation of our country, and they don't want that. They're trying to make our country into a communist hellhole, and they're going to pull out all the stops between now and November. They're going to pull out all the stops, and I have like I said, I have concerns about the election. Not just do we have an election? That's the black swan event that could possibly preclude the election where we wouldn't have one. But my friends have been having dreams that suggest a lengthy contested election where there is no clear winner, where both sides contest the process. And let's say, for example, it's election night and the returns are coming in and there are machine malfunctions, and there's civil unrest in some cities and the precincts are closed down. And there's no reporting from certain precincts, and they can't give us the full numbers on the night of the election. And that process gets mired in bureaucracy, in legal challenges. One part of the media is saying that Kamala Harris won. Some news outlets are saying that no, it looks like Trump won. I'm just concerned that we're going to get into this situation where there is no clear winner of the election on election night, and then it drags out for weeks and weeks and months where we don't know who the winner is. It gets challenged in courts, it gets challenged here, we end up with civil unrest. I'm just concerned that that things are not going to be done cleanly and not going to be done above board.
So if the Democrats are saying or hinting that they might be challenging elections, does that mean that they now believe that there is such a thing as election fraud?
Looking at you, Jamie Raskin.
Okay, because they've been telling us for a long time that doesn't exist. However, the way that they acted about the elections in Venezuela would tell us that they now do believe that there is such thing as.
You notice that.
I'm so confused.
Tony Blinken, the Secretary of State, was given the green light by the Biden administration to officially state that the U.S. government believes that Maduro was not the elected leader, did not win the election in Venezuela, that the opposition leader actually won the election.
And just like that, election fraud is a thing.
And just like that, the U.S. government became an election denier. And I suspect they're trying to set a precedent so that if Trump is declared the winner by anyone in November, the Biden-Harris administration can say, "Nuh-uh, this is another stolen, rigged, phony election. We're not going to accept the results." And since they're the party in power, they can remain in power indefinitely. They can
Right.
just decide they're not going to turn over the White House to Trump. In fact, Jamie Raskin has talked about it, how the Supreme Court failed and everybody else has failed, and they're going to make it the job of Congress to make sure that a convicted felon like Donald Trump doesn't ever get back in the White House again. If that's what we're going to do, that's what we'll have to do.
Yeah.
They're already talking about not certifying the election
Okay.
if Trump wins. Biden said he's not interested in a peaceful transition of power if Trump wins. Merrick Garland came out yesterday and reminded people, hey, if any of you are thinking about protesting the election, just remember what happened to the J6ers. Everything that's coming out, messaging from Washington is we are not going to have a smooth transition of power come January. It's going to be ugly, I think.
Wow. Here's one thing I want to say about this is when we have these types of prophetic unctions or dreams or visions, one of the things that I want to say about this type of thing in scripture is that whenever we've seen this happen, it doesn't mean that it's a done deal. What it means is that the Lord is giving a warning and giving people an opportunity to pray and participate in the outcome. And I want to stress this.
Yep.
Because I think sometimes when people hear these types of things, they go into fear and concern mode and sometimes into paralysis and thinking that it's over. So and so said that this is what they saw, but it's more a warning. And I want to I just can't emphasize this enough. God is not calling people to be passive and to go into a whatever happens mode. Please don't do that. I can't stress this enough, especially for the intercessors who are listening here. There are people specifically who listen to this show and to Dave who have a calling to intercession. And this is really critical that you pray us through this as a nation, because God is revealing the plans of the enemy. Just like when he sent Gideon into the enemy camp, and Gideon actually heard the dream that they had about how God was going to solve the problem. Was it Gideon who went down and they had a dream about it? I think it was Gideon. And so the idea is that God is actually revealing the plans of the enemy and showing us what the enemy plans to do. And then we take action, we take prayer. Don't underestimate the ability and the power of your prayers. And we're not talking about a begging prayer. We're talking about a prayer of power and authority, which is what Dave writes about and teaches about.
To that point,
yeah,
one of our good friends on social media, one of our Anon friends who has a very large following, had a very interesting dream 2 nights ago. The dream was symbolic, and the symbolic imagery of the dream clearly pertains to the election and an attempt to steal the election. Okay. In the dream, our friend went up into this really, really, really super high place way up in the sky, and he was doing battle with this evil entity that was trying to cause problems down on the earth. And he was doing warfare in the heavenly places and was able to basically neutralize the attacks of this other being. Right. The message there is exactly what you're saying. We, even though we can see in the natural trouble coming, even though God may give us revelation about a potentially, difficult election season, that is a call for us to get on our knees, go into the heavenly places, do our spiritual warfare, do our intercession, and change the outcome of these events for the better. It is absolutely a call to intercession. So yes.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's not
I
a
don't
duty.
mean to give anyone the impression that I'm black-pilled. I'm not black-pilled.
Good.
I am very optimistic about the long-term outlook for our country.
Yeah.
I am concerned that we're going to have some issues in the short term that have to be negotiated, and they need a lot of prayer.
And I think yes. So thank you for bringing that warning. And um, again, God gives us all different abilities and gifts, and one of the things that He's given Dave, and Dave has participated in, is the ability to see and to receive dreams and to get prophetic unctions about things that could be happening. So we do take that seriously because it's a way for us to get activated and motivated to pray. I want to shift back a little bit to the election. I don't want to talk about her, but I do want to talk a little bit about Kamala.
Okay.
Do you think that she came out of the gate too fast?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Do you think that she's going to peak too soon?
Oh, well, the thing with Kamala, Kamabla, I guess,
Kamala,
is calling her,
Kamala.
is she is on her honeymoon right now. Anytime that someone comes to the forefront in an election cycle and the general population doesn't know anything about them, they have a little bit of a honeymoon thing where they're going to have favorable numbers because the public doesn't really know a lot about them, doesn't really know their policy, what are they about, personality-wise. Do I like this person? Do I not like this person? So you end up with this, 50%. And Kamala's numbers have been around 50% ever since she became the nominee. Trump's, 46, 47, 45%. Kamala 50, 51%, and then Kennedy with 3 or 4, 5%. That was what we saw with the polling for the first week or two after they did the switcheroony. Which, by the way, if you happen to be on the Democrat side of the ledger and you happen to be listening to this with a critical ear and an eye for truth, I guess I would just encourage you to look at what happened this year in the Democrat primary, because in election years, normally you have a primary season where 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 candidates from the same party will run in a primary against each other. And then the primary election decides which of those Democrats and which of the Republicans is going to go on to the general election. Well, this year there was no primary for the Democrats.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of you actually cast votes for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the primary elections, but there was no one running against them. The Democrats decided, the DNC decided that they were going to run Joe and Kamala, and they would not allow anyone to run against them. So before the Iowa caucus, before South Carolina, before any New Hampshire, the DNC had already decided who the nominee was going to be. All of the primary, the elections, the voting, everything was all window dressing. It meant nothing. There wasn't a competitive election this year for the Democrats. The DNC decided who you people are going to have as your candidate. You did not have a decision. You did not have a vote. Yes, you got to cast a vote, but when you cast a vote and there's nobody running against the candidate, that's not really an election. So uh, the primary, and then when Joe was revealed to be an Alzheimer's patient, the DNC then decided, hey, screw you guys, we're going to put Kamala out there. And they just, the DNC put Kamala in position with no competition, no discussion, no votes, nothing. You guys had no choice this year in who your candidate was going to be. This year, Trump had to go up against Nikki Haley and a whole bunch of other Republicans, and Trump had to go and beat them all in the primary to go to the general. That's how it's supposed to happen. So anyway,
Yeah,
I just wanted to put that out there for any of you
saying that, and even
Democrats who are listening.
From a finance standpoint, that actually makes a difference too, because the candidate, when it comes to an election, there are actually two elections. One is the primary, and then the second election is the general. And in order to get through the primary, a candidate has to spend money and campaign. And so Trump was spending campaign money to campaign against these legitimate challengers for the primary nomination, and Joe Biden was not spending any money to campaign because he was the foregone conclusion until it was clear that he was too far gone to be a candidate, and then they just slotted Kamala in, which I think is actually questionable, because it's amazing to me how many Democrats told me that she was the obvious replacement because she's the vice president. That's not how primaries work.
Right.
She didn't even run in the primary. Her name was not on the ballot in the primary. It's not like she was the second runner-up. Be clear on that and understand, because you guys are screaming about protecting your democracy and about how Trump is a literal threat to your democracy. But then when your democracy is trampled by your party, that seems to be just fine. And you don't even talk about it.
Right.
I don't understand this. And speaking of trampling democracy, I just want to bring up one question to the people who are still thinking and believing that Trump is going to come in as the president and become literally Hitler. I got a couple of questions for you. Out of the past 16 years, who has held office the longest, the Democrats or Trump? That's an easy one. The Democrats. 12 of the last 16 years, Democrats have been in charge. When Trump was in office, do you think that if he had a proclivity to be literally Hitler, he would have taken advantage of it while he was the most powerful man in the world? Why didn't he do that? What happened? Did he forget that he was supposed to be Hitler? Did he put away his devil horns for 4 years? What is it that he did that made him just fail to be literally Hitler, to put all the gays in jail, to take away your rights, to trample your democracy? And then what makes you think that when he comes back, he's going to all of a sudden remember that he's literally Hitler? This is a question that I think requires some high level reasoning and logic on your part, but I want you to stretch a little bit and ask yourself these questions. If your life is better off now than it was, 12, 16 years ago, if you think that the person that is telling you things are going to get better is telling you the truth, if Kamala is telling you the truth, how come she needs to fix anything if your party had 12 of the last 16 years to make it better? Why is it so bad? Who did that? I know this, I know logic is hard, but stretch your mind for a minute and think about this. Whose fault is it really that you're paying $8 a dozen for eggs and you can't buy a house and you can't pay off your loans and interest rates keep rising and there's division in this country and you think that your neighbor is your enemy? Who started that? It didn't start under Trump and it didn't continue. Wait, he was just an interlude. He was a comma in the middle of the insanity known as the Democrat Party. And I'm just going to drop
Yeah.
that
Well,
there.
if Trump is going to be this authoritarian, Hitler-esque person that the media and Democrat politicians are warning us about, I would just ask you a couple of questions. During the summer of mostly peaceful protests in 2020, when Trump was in the White House, the George Floyd protests, where Black Lives Matter activists literally got up on the White House lawn and threatened to physically remove Trump from office. How many of those BLM activists went to jail? That many, zero. When the intelligence community, FBI, DOJ, CIA, the deep state, illegally surveilled the Trump campaign, then launched a witch hunt and tried to impeach him twice, got Flynn booted out of government, and just attacked him voraciously for 2 years. How many of the people involved in that hoax perpetrated by the intelligence community ended up in jail? You know how many of them ended up in jail because Trump is a fascist? Zero. Not even Igor Danchenko or Michael Sussman or any of the people that Durham brought to trial. None of them ended up in jail. If Trump is going to throw all of his political enemies in jail, why hasn't he done it already?
Yeah, why didn't he do it when he caught them? And he
Why
said,
isn't Comey in jail?
he
Why
said
aren't
he
any of
caught
those people in jail?
caught them all. Why aren't they in jail? Yeah. Well, I think, okay, one of the things that they're using to push this narrative is the rhetoric around Project 2025. And, you know, one of the things I want to point out about that too is that the Project 2025 is put out by the Heritage Foundation. It is something that they've done for years. This is a way that,
Going back to Reagan,
yeah, it's
the
a
Heritage
roadmap.
Foundation.
It's a roadmap.
Going back to Reagan, the Heritage Foundation has always put out a set of proposed policies that they would like Republican presidents to endorse.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And it's crazy because the rhetoric around this, I mean, the fear mongering that is being put out, not a day goes by that somebody doesn't come up in my comments saying, you really need to read Project 2025. It's, and that's usually what they say. Like, guys really need to read this. And I just say, why? And then nobody can answer. Or if they say it's dangerous, I say, tell me how is it dangerous? And this is how it's just, it's sad, right?
Well, the answer is Trump never commissioned, never agreed to, and doesn't support Project 2025. That is a leftist mainstream media talking point for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
Trump has been putting out videos called Agenda 47, which are his actual proposals, policy, domestic policy, economic policy, foreign policy. All of his policies are in his Agenda 47 videos. You can go watch them, and you should, because these are the things Trump actually wants to do.
I'm putting it in the chat. Exactly. And by the way, one of my listeners on X, I blocked you by accident. I'm really sorry. I'm going to try to fix it, but I don't know what I did. I apologize. So speaking of chat, if people are listening now, I want to encourage you to give us a comment. Let us know where you're listening from. Also, let us know your thoughts. Do you think there's going to be an election? Give us your thoughts about what you think is going to happen. If you think that it's going to be mired in legal challenges, if you think that there's going to be a crisis that is pushed on the nation that will prevent us from having an election, will the results be challenged? Where do you see this going? And how are you praying to affect the outcome here? Let us know. Go ahead, Dave.
Can we go back to Kamala Harris for 1 minute?
Okay.
because I wanted to finish up my thoughts. We
Yes.
rabbit trailed, but I do have something I want to say about
Yes.
Kamala.
Yes.
You asked about whether she came out of the gate too fast.
Yes.
So there's this honeymoon period for Kamala where
Yeah.
people really don't know her. They don't know her policies. They don't know her personality. I mean, Kamala was the most invisible vice president maybe ever.
Yeah.
Like, how do you really know anything about Kamala Harris if you're
Mhm.
just a normie? So there's a honeymoon period where she gets a kind of she's given kind of granted this favorable status
Mhm.
until and unless she says something or does something to change that. And why do you think she's not doing any interviews with the news? She's not doing really any rallies other than she did a couple. She did one here in Glendale, she did one in Atlanta, and she did one, I think, she talked for a little bit at the RNC, but they're not letting her do anything that's off teleprompter. No, she has no policies on her website. She's not doing interviews. She's not really doing rallies. She's not campaigning because they're hoping they can maintain that favorability rating where Kamala, don't say anything to screw this up. Do not say anything. Just read what's on the teleprompter
Right.
and don't improvise and don't do anything because your numbers are going to go down if people find out who you really are.
Mhm.
So I think that the Democrats are trying to keep her out of the spotlight, keep her from doing anything ad lib or impromptu or that's not scripted, because they know if that woman opens her mouth and is given a microphone for 15 minutes, the next day she'll be 2 points lower in the polls. And so the debates are going to be interesting. The debate, I think is there one debate that's scheduled that she's agreed to? That's going to be Trump's chance to land some blows and knock her down in the numbers. And Trump's a really good debater, and Kamala Harris is kind of not a great debater. So I think that'll be Trump's chance.
Yeah, I think so too. And one of the things that I think is important to pray as well when we think about the conversation or the debate, I think one of the things that they're trying to do when it comes to the optics and the narrative around Trump, the rapist, is obviously they want to paint him as a misogynist and they want to set up Kamala to be this fragile victim that if he goes after her, I think they want to bait him into, coming at her hard, even if it's with facts. They're going to set her up to be a
The
victim.
victim and him
And
be the aggressor or
yeah,
the
that he would,
yeah,
oh, see, he's aggressive. Now, here's what I would say to that. If they use that tactic, I would say, look, if Kamala can't handle having her ass handed to her in a political debate, then how is she going to protect your interests on the world stage? Because Putin and Xi and Kim Jong Un, they don't care about her feelings. So if
right.
she's a fragile flower on the debate stage, do you really want her representing you on the world stage? No.
Right. Or would you like the alpha male, Trump, who invites Xi over to Mar-a-Lago and they're hanging out and Trump he's like, hey, Xi, you got to have my chocolate cake. We have the best chocolate cake in the world here. So Trump
By
goes
the
and he has
way,
someone. So Trump orders some chocolate cake for President Xi. The chocolate cake comes and Trump excuses himself for a couple of minutes and comes back and says, oh, yeah, by the way, we just sent 52 Tomahawk missiles into a military base in Syria and blew the shit out of the military base because Bashar al-Assad has been gassing his own citizens, and we're tired of fucking around. We're not going to have this anymore.
yeah.
Do you want? Trump goes into a negotiation with the leader of Al Qaeda and hands the guy a map that has a picture of his house on it and says, and the guy says, why do you give me a picture of my house? Trump's like, you're gonna have to figure that out. Trump has told that story at
Yeah.
rallies over and over and over again. Did you hear that one of the guys who was in the meeting, a member of Congress,
Yeah.
verified that that's exactly what happened?
Yeah.
Trump
Yeah.
handed the guy a picture of his house and was like, and
Yep.
walked out of the room.
Yeah.
He
I
said,
have the
if you
yeah.
kill any Americans, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah. So Trump is operating on a FAFO policy, and Kamala is operating on a poor me victim policy. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know when it comes to who I want in the driver's seat against these ruthless people who want us dead. There is no question. I mean, right? It's
We're, we are
crazy.
we are quickly approaching, with Russia and Ukraine, with North Korea and South Korea, with Taiwan and communist China. We're approaching, and with Israel and Iran. We have 4 different fronts where within a couple of weeks, we could end up in a nuclear exchange. 3, I don't think that would happen down in Taiwan, but in North Korea and South Korea, with Israel and Iran, with Ukraine and Russia, in 2 weeks' time, we could have a situation that devolves to the point where we're looking at a possible nuclear exchange. Do you really want someone like Kamala Harris, a laughing hyena, having to make decisions about the fate of our country during that kind of crisis? Or would you rather have someone like Trump, who has already been there, and as he said, he has stopped 4 wars so far with phone calls?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether Trump is a rapist, whether Trump is literally Hitler, is irrelevant at that point. You want the guy on the phone who can de-escalate the situation and prevent the nukes from flying. That's kind of bottom line where we're at.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think that one of the things that I would encourage too is that that people take um pick your battles, I guess. Try not to major on the minors, especially if you're on social media, that there's things that are there to distract you. And you can spend all day, you can spend hours going back and forth trying to convince people who don't even want to be convinced about things that really aren't going to alter the outcome of the election. And so I would say, really just pray for discernment about the types of conversations and the way how to spend your time. Um, because one of the tactics of trolls, whether they're concerned trolls or just outright nasty trolls, is to actually to distract you, to keep you from being about the business that God has for you. So just keep that in mind, because these are the types of things like, oh, he's literally Hitler, he's going to do this, blah, blah, blah. Like it can really take you down these rabbit trails where you're on the defensive all of a sudden. And yes, it's important to defend Trump, but to do it in a smart way. Um, and again, sometimes when people come at me with things like that, I just say, why? I put the burden on them. I put the onus of the proof on them. He's literally this. He's going to do what do you mean? Give me some examples, and then just leave it with them. Don't automatically spend all your ammunition and your time trying to score points against people that you don't even know.
It's
And
it's important to
yeah,
discern whether you're dealing with someone who is just a troll,
yeah,
who is trying to waste your time
yeah,
and get inside your head. If you
yeah,
run into these people on social media, just ignore them. Like, if the person is just continually spewing the same regurgitated lines that
yeah, yeah,
everyone else spews on these issues, and they have no interest in having an open, intelligent conversation, don't waste your time with them.
yeah,
Just move
exactly.
on. Maybe find someone who is willing to have an open, honest, transparent, intelligent conversation. Those people you might be able to reason with. But online trolls, bless them and block them and move on.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I think so. And it is it's just speaking of trolling, I want to talk a little bit about memes, meme warfare and trolling because it seems to come up and people seem to get offended. Um I want to talk about, top keck troll, the king of trolls, Trump, and
Okay.
just a little bit about that because,
The
we
shit
talk
poster in chief.
the shit poster in chief. Yeah, and I think Don Jr. is like in second place, and I have a feeling Barron is going to take a place in that hierarchy very soon.
Okay.
Um, but but yeah, let's just talk a little bit about that because it's part of the information war, and sometimes when we post memes, people get offended or they don't know that it's a meme. So
Right.
can you explain this to
Oh my
people?
gosh, where do I start? I've been having these conversations with people who they like follow me for the religious content and the
Oh
spiritual
no.
teaching and the healing stuff, but they don't know that I'm an anon and they don't know that I'm a shit poster and they don't know about the memes and they don't know
Yeah.
about the what anon life is all about
Okay.
and how we post these sometimes crude, sometimes politically incorrect
Yeah.
drawings, photos, pictures, memes, whatever, as a means of warfare. Uh, this goes back to way before Trump even was running for reelection or running for election the first time. There is a thing in circles of, it's mostly in circles of patriots on boards like 4chan and 8chan. It started years ago where we would post memes as a way to crack each other up, as a way to build camaraderie, as a way to provide hope for other people, sometimes just amusing, sometimes. The thing about memes is in the sense of graphic memes, a graphic meme being an illustration, whether it's a photo with text or whether it's a drawing or some kind of artistic rendering. What memes do is they convey deep messages through a simple image. And many times the meme conveys more information you can get in a book in one simple picture
Yeah.
that goes right through all of your cognitive dissonance. It goes through all of your defense mechanisms. A meme can go right through all of the rationalizations that you've been taught your whole life, all the brainwashing, the programming from school. A meme can cut right to the heart of the issue and speak to you in the deepest place of your soul. And memes are extremely powerful. And that's why we use them on social media. We use them to convey messages that are just deep and profound and many times hilariously funny, sometimes just oozingly patriotic. Memes are just a powerful way to convey information in the information warfare space. And so we use them a lot. And for the and for the people who follow me, who, like I said, who are only familiar with the spiritual books, only familiar with my teaching on healing and God's presence and all that, they see me posting these memes and all this other, and they're like, what happened to you? Who took over your account? You're not the praying medic. You're a different person. I don't know you. What's
Right.
going on? They're all like pearl clutching and,
Yeah.
grasping at like, what's my
Yeah.
reality is, son, who's this guy posting these evil frog memes?
And
So,
I hope my Facebook audience is listening to this because sometimes you guys get so bent out of shape when I post memes. You're like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's satire, guys. It's sarcasm." Like, you have to understand that this is where we live sometimes because it's a pressure release too. Part
yeah,
of it is that it's a pressure release. And, I'm just going to ask for me and for Dave and for the Anons, give us some grace because we're at the front lines all the time. And, when we post a meme, as Dave calls it, if we do some shit posting, sometimes it's just a way to release the pressure valve. Um, and so just indulge it, right? Don't try to correct me. Don't try to tell me, oh, that couldn't happen. It's a meme. It's just a meme. It's literally a joke. And so try to understand that, please. Just
There's
work with me here.
there
Work
is
with us.
there's a saying among anons, okay, and
Meme them till they cry.
we will meme you until you cry, and we will meme you crying.
Yes.
And this started with the triggered lefties back in 2016 who were screaming at the sky and crying about Trump being elected and the world was over. And oh my God, it's literally Hitler and he's going to throw us all in prisons. And we memed the shit out of these people until they were literally just crying, a blubbering mess on social media where their fragile little feelings were hurt. And we were drinking their salty tears every single day. And we were just loving the fact that they could not handle the reality that we finally got literally Hitler in the White House. So we memed the hell out of these people for a long time in 2016 and 2017. And there's just this history with memeing. It's what we do. We're in an information warfare domain.
Yes.
We're fighting a battle of information. And sometimes we just like to flip them the bird, piss them off, get inside their head, and discourage them and in our own little ways. Sometimes it's just mocking them. A lot of times it's just mocking their stupidity.
Yeah.
So don't get too serious and concerned about meme warfare. It's just something that we do. It's part of the anon culture. If you're not an anon, if you're not one of the anons, if you're not into that whole thing, just keep scrolling. Forget you ever saw the little Pepe devil or whatever it is that we posted. Just keep scrolling and realize it's not for you. Like Q says on the board sometimes, not all posts are for anons. Well, not all memes are for all of our followers. Sometimes it's just a small audience we're talking to.
Exactly. And, President Trump is an anon. And so please always remember that
He is the highest ranking anon.
He's which one?
He is the highest ranking anon.
Highest ranking anon.
You catch the clip from Devolution Power Hour. Holy hell. So speaking of Trump being anon.
Okay.
Right. John Harold, Burning Bright, and Kyle, they do a thing called Devolution Power Hour 3 or 4 nights a week. They might do it every night. I don't know. They were doing Devolution Power Hour, I think 4 nights ago, and they ran across the mother of all Q proofs. And it was a discussion that was launched because John Harold, Patel Patriot, was reading through the January 6th testimony of General Keith Kellogg. Keith Kellogg is one of the generals who recruited Trump to run for president. Him and Dunford, and probably a couple other generals. Trump has said of Keith Kellogg, he was there since before the very beginning of Trump's time in public, in office, and Kellogg's testimony before the January 6th committee. So they had this on Devolution Power Hour. John Harold is reading through Kellogg's testimony, and Kellogg is telling members of Congress about how there is a small group of people in the Trump White House who collectively compose the tweets that Trump puts out and using the Socratic method. Okay? And as Patel Patriot or John said this, Burning Bright's like, wait a minute. Did he actually say Socratic method? And he said, yeah, that's what he said. So he's reading through this transcript of General Kellogg testifying about how they would take the text that they were going to put out on a tweet, on a Trump tweet, and they would print it out and give a copy of it to everyone in the room, and they would all have input about how many spaces, how many periods, what words, what spelling, we're going to misspell this word, how do we want to spell it, what's the message we want to convey. He talks about how in the White House there is a team of people overseeing all the tweets, the misspellings, the gaps, the spaces, the periods. How many should we put 3 or 4 periods? How many tweets? We're going to do 2 tweets with this one. And they would take feedback from everybody and rewrite the tweets before they posted them. All right.
Wow.
For those of you who don't know, Q has said that he can be confirmed by less than 10 people. And of those less than 10 people, only 3 are non-military. Kellogg, I think, was describing the Q team that is responsible for coordination of the Q post, where you get the 0 deltas, where Q and Trump post at the same time, and how everything is constructed using the Socratic method. Because if you know anything about the Q drops, that's what Q has been doing. He asks questions. Who is this person? What about this company? How are they related? What happened on this date at this place? Who was involved? What congressional investigation? What article? Blah, blah, blah. What this? How about that? Q is always asking questions. The Socratic method. It's designed to get people thinking and researching and kind of putting things together. And General Kellogg literally said that they use the Socratic method in crafting these posts on Trump's Twitter account.
Wow.
So for those of you who are not aware, I posted it on my X, my Twitter timeline. The videos, it's about 10-minute long video. Devolution Power Hour, it's Patel Patriot and those guys on with Badlands. It's also on my Telegram channel. I just thought, holy moly, this is a general in the Trump administration explaining how the operation works. To me, it was fascinating.
That is amazing. And for those of you who are new and have not been privy to these conversations that Dave and I have, some people might be asking about Q. I refer you to my Rumble, Mary Grace Media, to episode 12, Conspiracy of Truth, episode 12. Dave and I did a full show just talking about Q. So if you want to watch and listen and have access to a Q&A where he explains it, you can do that. You can also get Dave's books. He has several books that he's written. But if you just want an introduction and just a kind of have it like a 30,000 foot view with some in-depth discussions, go watch that episode. And then I would recommend going to Dave's website and then getting into the books. But just start with that episode, and that gives you a really good overview, how it started, who it is, how President Trump fits into it, all of that. That is Conspiracy of Truth, episode 12 on my Rumble channel, Mary Grace Media. Go ahead and do that. You will be happy that you did that. So anything else? Where are we now at this point? So much happening.
How come we never have anything to talk about?
I don't know. But Diana on Facebook says these are fantastic books. One thing I do want to say to my Facebook listeners is there is a way that you can support the channel on Facebook by giving stars. And for some reason, they don't seem to show up during the lives. But you can go to my page and click on my other posts and give stars, and they all go to the same place. Also, if you want to be a paid subscriber on Facebook, you can do that, and then you'll get access to more exclusive content. When we get up to a certain number of subscribers, we will have more broadcasts that are focused just on the subscribers that are unique to you. On Rumble, you can give Rumble rants, and that's another way to support the channel. The other thing you can do is you can Venmo me. So if you don't want to buy anything, you don't want to support an affiliate partner, you can just Venmo me, and that link is in my show notes on Rumble, and it's also in my email when I send that out to you. Or you can just message me and say, "Hey, what's your Venmo?" We can send you that. So Dave, I want to talk a little bit, maybe if you have time, about some prepping,
I have time.
because you're deep into that.
Yeah,
And
I got time. I got
okay.
a weekend. Let's talk.
Oh no. We're not talking about ham radio. We can, but just briefly.
We're talking about prepping.
Yes, you have a book about it. You have a book that a lot of people have gotten.
I do.
And we have a link up here for it. It's Emergency Preparedness and Off-Grid Communications. This is a book that you wrote, and you actually, God has given you a lot of dreams about things that you need to address and share with people. And so
Yes.
this is a good opportunity for people to understand what's out there and what's available in your book.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take a quick break.
Okay. So the book is divided into two main parts. The first half of the book covers topics that are generally applicable to preparedness, emergency preparedness. So there are chapters on things like first aid. Actually, the chapter on first aid, emergency first aid, is pretty extensive because I'm a retired paramedic and I have a great interest in medicine. There's a lot of good information in there on emergency first aid. There is a chapter on mental preparedness. If we are going to see some kind of a crisis in the future, whether that is war here on the homeland, whether that is widespread power outage, loss of internet, loss of water, we're already seeing some of those things happening. If you follow the news, there are cyber attacks that are ongoing. And those cyber attacks have taken down small sections of the power grid, small sections of internet service, and other critical infrastructure. So the first part of the book is really kind of a general guide on things like I said, mental preparedness, how to navigate if we lose GPS. if you lost internet, lost cell phone signal, and you could not navigate using Google Maps, would you be able to navigate your way around town, get to different places? There's a chapter on navigation that explains the basics of land navigation without using GPS. There's chapters on how to put aside food for emergency, how to put aside water, devices you can use for filtering and purifying water in the event that we have a water emergency. There is a chapter on firearms. There's a chapter on home defense and other issues that are related to that. There is a chapter on how to survive nuclear war. Yes, nuclear war is survivable. It may not be a real happy existence afterward, but there are things you can do if you're interested in doing it, and that'll help you survive a nuclear attack. Right. So that's the first part of the book. Then the second part of the book goes into emergency communications, really off-grid communication. And I cover all the different ways in which you can communicate that do not require internet or cell phone service. And there are a lot of ways that you can communicate without using internet or cell phone. Everything from satellite devices to radios that are receive only. So things like police scanners and shortwave radios, great for listening to for incoming messages from emergency broadcast stations, radio stations around the world, police, fire, EMS, if you're using a scanner. And then I get into transmission radios, two-way radios that you can use. some of which do not require a license, right? So things like marine band and FRS and MERS. Those are 3 different modes of radio communication that you can use that don't require a license. And then there are things like GMRS, and there's amateur radio. Those do require a license. I cover the ins and outs of the licensing requirements, how much it costs, what kind of hardware you're looking at, portable radios that are small, handheld radios, and then there's mobile radios for in your car or truck, how to set those up, and then base radios, ones that sit on a desk in your house and you connect it to an antenna on the roof of your house, and you can talk many FARs with a base mobile radio with a good antenna on your roof. And so, like I said, the second half of the book, it's all really kind of focused on off-grid communication. Off-grid communication does mean having a supply of energy, power. So there's a chapter on backup power, fuel generators, whether it's natural gas or gasoline or propane generators. I'm a big fan of solar power production. Solar power generators, solar batteries are a really good option if you happen to live in a place that has adequate sunshine. And I happen to live in Phoenix, so we have like 320 days of sun a year. And off-grid communication radios and communication devices all need a source of power. So we're talking about batteries. There's a lot of information in the book on that, how to integrate into your communications plan a way to have power to to keep those radios running for the long haul. There's also information about repeaters for radio, how repeaters work, how to talk radio to radio, how to talk to a large area of users using a repeater. And then there's amateur HF radio, which is really the only good option for communicating with people around the country and around the world. As much as we're accustomed to having the ability to communicate with people using internet and cell phone, people in other states, in other countries around the world, if we lose cell phone and lose internet service, it's going to be very difficult to communicate with anyone outside of about a 5-mile radius. And once you get outside of about a 100-mile radius, you have very, very few options. Really, the only good option at that point is amateur HF radio. You want to know what? I've got a radio here. I don't know if I can bring this over here. I think I can if I disconnect it. Maybe I can. I'll just leave it there. I've got this radio sitting next to me. It's an amateur HF radio made by Yaesu. And that radio allows me, because it's connected to an antenna that's up on my roof, allows me to talk to people around the country. I can communicate digitally. There are digital modes that you can use using amateur HF radio that require very low power. So we're talking like 5 watts, sometimes even as low as 2 or 3 watts of power. With 2 or 3 watts, 5 watts of power, you can send out digital signals to radio stations around the country and around the world, and they can hear you, they can receive your messages, you can receive them back. And with voice, communication, with higher powers, 50 watts to 100 watts, using an HF radio, you can talk to people around the state, around the country, in other countries. My first contact to Europe was a man in Slovenia, I think. One of the Eastern European countries. Very nice man. We were talking to each other, had a good signal. I could hear him, he could hear me. At different times of the day, I pick up stations in Japan and in Australia and China. And at other times of the day, I can pick up stations pretty well in Europe and South America. sometimes Africa. Amateur HF radio is a fascinating hobby. I didn't get into it because I think it's a great hobby. I got into it because God was giving me all these dreams, showing me that we're going to have communication problems in the future. I've been having these dreams for 3 years. I've had more than 100 of them where God has shown me loss of internet, loss of cell phone, loss of power, even water disruptions. So I started preparing and learning about these topics years ago. I think we're going to see these things come to pass in the relatively near future. And if you have not yet been preparing for these things, I would strongly encourage you to consider picking up the book and reading it and start doing some preparing. I pray every night that the things that God has shown me are not going to come to pass, but I'm also preparing in the event that they do come to pass. Hey, Mary.
Yeah, I'm back. Thank you
You
for
are.
that. I appreciate that. I had the
Absolutely.
QR code up so people could get it. It's available wherever books are sold. Also, on your they can go to your website, prayingmedic.com. Um, and the thing that I think too I want to bring in is, we always have people. Well, first of all, nobody can be fully prepared for everything. That's just not possible.
That is true.
And eventually, if things are bad enough, then you're going to run out of stuff.
Right.
So talk about supernatural provision, and then also just for the people who are asking, if anybody's asking how to get in touch with Dave, Dave has a Telegram channel, and he also has a website. And if you're looking to connect with the prayer groups that he has and the testimonies, that's on the Telegram. We don't use this broadcast for prayer. Dave does a live on his Telegram called Supernatural Saturdays once a month, where it's more interactive for that, for prayer and healing. So I do encourage you to take part in that if you can. It's just limited time on here, and that's just not the direction that we go on this show, even though it's very much something we believe in. It's just not where we are.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to encourage people and remind them about that. But what's the best way for people to get your
Best way
books?
to contact me if you have a prayer request.
Yeah.
The best way to contact me is to go to my website, preparedness.com or preparedness.org. Got two websites. The main website is preparedness.com. Our ministry website is preparedness.org. Both of them have a contact tab. Hit the contact tab. It'll pull up a little email window. You can put in your email address, subject matter, and then your prayer request. And send me your prayer request, send me your question, whatever. And I'm on my email every day. I will respond to you within 24 hours usually.
Good.
And pray for you. I see a lot of people healed through email prayer requests. So if it's a question about preparedness or healing or whatever, best way to do it is through email. If you just want to take down my email, it is admin@prayingmedic.com. Email me. I'm happy to answer your question or pray for you. Excellent. Back to preparedness. So you're right. You can't prepare for everything. Even if you were able to store up enough food for, let's say, 6 months, even if you were able to have a completely off-grid solar, you had all the weapons that you need, all the guns and ammo that you could possibly want, there's going to come a situation that you're not going to be prepared for. And at that point, you may have to rely on God. Let's say you're really good at preparing everything else, but you're not really savvy on how to treat a chest injury. And you have an open chest injury that happens during a crisis, and you're not actually ready to take care of that issue. One of the things you can do is you can learn how to exercise the power and authority that Jesus has given us for healing and miracles. Luke chapter 9, verses 1 and 2. Jesus called his disciples to himself, and he gave them power and authority over demons and to heal diseases, and he sent them out and to heal the sick, raise the dead, cast out demons, cleanse the lepers. All right. So in addition to preparedness, I also teach people how to manifest the supernatural power of God in physical healing, in emotional healing, in deliverance. We have testimonies that I post in my Telegram channel. Hey, Mary, you want to get your phone out and show them the Telegram channel? It's
Yes.
praying_medic. That's my Telegram channel. There's a whole bunch of fake praying medic Telegram channels. Praying_medic is mine. On that Telegram channel, I post testimonies all the time, and friends post their testimonies of things that they see happen. We have people posting every week testimonies from people who have prayed over broken dishwashers, broken air conditioners, broken cars, and they have seen them supernaturally repaired. I know people who pray over their gas tank, and they just declare that God is going to keep that gas tank full, and they drive their vehicles for weeks without filling it up on an empty gas tank. I can't tell you how many gas tank miracles I have heard over the years. Like I said, physical healing, supernatural food provision. We have received testimonies over the years from many people who have prayed over their food and watched it multiply. Moses hit the rock with his staff, and water came out of the rock, and the water was there's the
Telegram channel.
There's the Telegram channel. Moses was able to provide water for the Israelites in the wilderness when they didn't have any water. When people needed food, they asked God. God gave them food. God can supernaturally provide whatever you need. So in addition to physical preparedness, I also teach that you should learn how to operate in the supernatural. It's a power that God has given us. He told the disciples, look, they don't have any food. Give them something to eat. And they came to him with a couple of fish, a loaf of bread. He blessed it, broke it, gave it back to them, and said, distribute it. By faith, when the disciples took the broken pieces of bread and fish, they, by faith, believed that if they just obeyed the Lord and gave out the food, it would feed everybody, and they fed 4,000 people. The same miracles that God does, we read about in scriptures, he is doing today. Food multiplication, purification of water supernaturally. So there you are. We're in a nuclear post-apocalyptic time, and you're alive and your neighborhood has survived, but you've got your groundwater is radiated. Well, you know what? You can go over to that pond and speak to that pond and command all of the nuclear radiation to be removed from that water in the name of Jesus, and you will get pure water out of that pond. God can do miracles, and I personally believe, this is my belief, in the coming days, we're going to need this, to know how to operate in the supernatural. One of my friends had a dream where his entire neighborhood was blacked out. All the houses were dark except for 3 houses. He saw this middle house and one house on both sides of that one. And there was an angel standing on top of this house, hanging onto a power line. And those 3 houses all had power, and all the rest of the neighborhood was out. I believe that God is going to supernaturally allow us, some of us, to have power when the rest of our neighborhood is dark, to have internet messaging and cell phone messaging when nobody else has it. I believe God's going to create supernatural hotspots for communication if we believe, because the Bible says to those who believe, all things are possible. all things means all things. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, um, yeah, like I said, in addition to physical preparedness, I think that we should start exercising now our spiritual
Mm.
muscles and learn how to operate in the supernatural.
Yeah, that's good. And it seems like every time we do a show, I bring up my friend Michelle because she does prayer for weather. And she's actually already seen some of the things that you've been talking about. That in it's interesting when you pray during weather events because it's a heavenly event. And so she's actually seen instances in real time where there's if you'll be watching the weather guys on YouTube and they'll be saying, "Oh my gosh, there's a tornado." It's like you see the raging red thing screaming over central Virginia, and she has a pin over our house that that is where the heavenly hosts are deployed. And so she's actually shown me the video recordings of the weather of the satellite where there'll be like an empty hole over our house where there's no tornado or no what do you call it's not a tornado like a
I take it you haven't seen the latest testimony I posted on my Telegram like 3 days ago.
no
There's a
did
guy
do
named
we have one of
Ramsey.
those?
There's a guy named Ramsey who posted, he sent me a testimony by
Yeah.
email, and he sent me the video of the radar loop.
Yeah.
And he said, so he had this forecast, and the weather forecasters are forecasting a terrible storm and a tornado. He's like, and I got kind of petrified, and I got to get downstairs in the basement. And then he thought, no, hang on. I need to just declare. I remember what Praying Medic said. Just declare that the storm is going to be cease, is going to quiet and calm down. So he did that. And then on his phone, he recorded the radar loop. And you can see this red area coming toward his town and then opening up his town and going past it. You can see the dot where he is. And the storm just completely goes around that whole area.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
And she has so many testimonies like that where there will be these severe storms coming, and one of the things obviously is you always pray for no loss of life.
Right.
And there have been storms that have hit where they should have had casualties and everybody was fine. Some property damage but no loss of life. And then the other thing that happens a lot is that you'll see property damage, but like her yard and her next door neighbor's yard won't even have a tree branch on the grass. Or if a tree or a branch falls, it just she's watched where a branch sort of gets like moved around and laid down gingerly on the grass like somebody was holding it to keep it from hitting the house. And so it's really interesting and exciting to watch because of what God is doing. And he is listening, and he is wanting us to see those testimonials and to be living those, because the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, and it helps to build other people's faith when we see these things happen. And I do see some comments in the chat where people are saying, well, Bonnie is saying, I've been praying over my washing machine for 6 months and it keeps working.
Keep doing it.
But keep it up. Yeah. And so, and then, but then there's another person who's saying, I prayed for pain relief for an injury for 3 years, but no help yet. Talk a little bit about forgiveness, because this is a thing that comes in. And when we have Dr. Troy Sproul on, sometimes he talks about this too. He said that he has patients who will go sometimes for years. They're doing everything they can medically, but then when the forgiveness piece comes in, that's when a change happens.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Okay. So most people, I'm just going to be very blunt here, because
Okay.
it's just, it's blunt and direct time, as Q would say. BDT. I'm not going to talk crap about Adam Schiff, because that's another subject. In this BDT, blunt and direct time, I'm just going to say most people do not know how to pray for healing. They just don't. I didn't when I started out. I prayed for 500 people and nobody got healed. All right. So you prayed for yourself for several months and you weren't healed. It's probably because you don't know how to pray for healing. There is a specific way that you pray for healing, and it's not begging God to heal you. That's not how you do it. If you read through the Gospels, read all the accounts of healing in the Gospels and in the New Testament, in the book of Acts, there's a bunch in there too. You'll never see Jesus or the disciples asking for healing. They did not ask the Father to heal them. They released power, or they exercised authority and commanded demons to leave, right? And that's a technique. And the technique is you put your hand up, and by faith, you believe that the power of the Holy Spirit that is in you is going out into somebody else, and it's going to heal them or yourself. You can put your hand on your shoulder and command that shoulder to be healed. So the release of power, when it says in Luke 9, Jesus gave his disciples power and authority. Okay, he gave them two things: power and authority over demons and to cure diseases. Power works creative miracles. When you release the power of the Holy Spirit that is in you, you release that power, it creates new tissue. When the woman with the flow of blood was following Jesus on the way to the house of Jairus, she said, if I just touch the hem of his garment, I know I'll be healed. She had faith. She said, I know if I touch the hem of his garment, I'll be healed. She touched the hem of his garment and power went out of him. And Jesus turned around to the disciples and said, who touched me? And Peter said, what do you mean, Lord? Everyone's touching you. He said, I felt power go out of me. Who touched me? And the woman came and she testified. And the Lord said, your faith has made you well. Her faith, her confidence drew the power out of the Lord into her body, and she was healed. That's a release of power. And that is this. When you put your hand out and you release by faith, you believe that when you do that, you believe power is going to leave your body and it's going to go to their person and heal them, or yourself if you're praying for yourself. That's power. Authority is command. Jesus would command demons to leave and they would go. It's an exercise of authority. A lot of people have chronic pain because they've got demons. You command the demons to leave. Spirit of pain, get out now and don't come back. And then there are other issues. And my book, Divine Healing Made Simple, also there's another book, Power and Authority Made Simple. Power and Authority Made Simple explains the process where you release power and how the many different ways you can exercise authority over all different kinds of things, including healing. However, in addition to releasing power, exercising authority, there is emotional healing. A lot of people have chronic pain because they have emotional trauma that is not healed. And the emotional trauma is essentially, there it is, emotional healing. The emotional trauma acts as a doorway that allows evil spirits to attach to you and cause chronic pain and sickness and disease. So emotional healing is a thing. There's Power and Authority Made Simple.
I'm putting up the QR codes for those who are just listening.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
There are many things that you have to take into consideration in the healing dynamic. Mary mentioned forgiveness. I, for a period of time, had chronic neck pain, and I'd have my buddies pray over me. They had a good track record for healing, and they'd pray over me, and my pain would go away. And then a day later, it would come back. And they'd pray over me again, and it would go away, and then it would come back, and it'd go away, and it'd come back. I went to a healing conference one time, and this woman got a word of knowledge. She said, you're angry at somebody. You need to forgive them. And when you do, you're going to be healed. And I saw in my mind's eye, I saw this picture of my wife's boss. I was mad at him. So I released my anger and I forgave him. And that closed the doorway for this demon of pain, the spirit of pain that was afflicting me. That thing left and it never came back. Sometimes it's forgiveness. Sometimes you need emotional healing. Oftentimes you just need to command these evil spirits to leave. Sometimes it's release of power. Sometimes it's exercise of authority. There's all different kinds of different dynamics involved in the healing process. I would encourage you to pick up some resources. Pick up the book on power and authority, read it, start exercising authority, start releasing power. It takes practice. You can't just do it one time and say it doesn't work. I give up. Until you've done it 500 times, you can't give up. You have to just keep going. That's the rule. That's Dave's rule. If you've prayed for 500 people and nobody's been healed, then you can quit. But until that time, you have to just keep going. All right.
I think, you know, one of the things that I do too, let me put up this QR code again for the Power and Authority. So these are some of Dave's books. I'm putting them up on the screen, and you can always go to his website as well. And if you want to do snail mail and send him a check, you can do it that way too. Just send an email through his website. And that's prayingmedic.com. The reason that you can write a check still to Praying Medic is that all of the payment processing people canceled him. So yeah, he's still old school. But one of the things I was going to say about this is that I've had times where I just get I get a righteous anger, and I just say, I am no longer tolerating this. When things will come back. And I actually learned this from Kat Kerr, that you just like, you're done, you know? And so when something little niggling thing tries to come back, I just go, no, I'm done. I will not tolerate this. You have
Yeah.
no right here. You have no place in my body. Get away. And it's sometimes that's what it takes, is for you to understand.
I have literally come from my backyard doing some yard work, came into my house, and suddenly, as I get in my kitchen, I have pain in my ankle. I'm like,
Yeah.
where did that pain come from? Like, I didn't injure myself. I didn't sprain my ankle, but I had this really bad pain in my ankle.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to realize, oh, it's a demon. He just jumped me. It's a demon of pain. He just attached to me.
Yeah.
Command, spirit of pain, take a hike, get away from me, do not come back, go bother somebody else. And like that, the pain is gone and it doesn't come back. Demons that cause pain, chronic pain, are very common, and they will literally just like jump you like a hitchhiker, just latch onto you and hang on to you. And if you don't realize that you've got a demon that just decided to attach onto you, you'll think you developed some kind of crazy illness or injury you don't actually have. Many times it's just a spirit of pain that needs to be told to hit the road.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and I do that sometimes. I'm like, no, and you recognize it, and you just go, no, go, get away from me. As we're going through these topics, I see some people in the chat who are bringing up some issues that are going to involve a little more conversation than we have time for now. And so I just want to encourage you, especially we have Catherine who's talking about an experience she had on Facebook. Please send an email to Dave. He and Denise will pray for you and respond. So don't think that we're ignoring you. But like I said, we don't have time to go into every topic right now. But your needs and your issues are important. And so I want to encourage you to do that. And especially because I don't want a root of disappointment or bitterness to take hold in your heart because of what you went through, because that will harm you in the long run. And so please reach out to Dave and reach out through the Telegram channel as well. There's a really good community there to help you.
If you want a good resource, if you are suffering with any kind of physical illness or mental illness, a mental health diagnosis, chronic pain, some disease, and you've received prayer repeatedly and you're not healed, I strongly suggest get the book on emotional healing, read that book, and go through your life and let the Lord highlight different issues throughout your life that cause emotional trauma, and you can get them healed quickly. And normally what I hear from people is, hey, I went through these, 3 or 4 issues that I had when I was a kid, and holy moly, I didn't realize I had been that wounded by these things.
Yeah.
And once I allowed the Lord to heal me of these issues, boom, the symptoms are gone.
Yeah. There's a lot of emotion involved.
Emotional trauma is the root of a lot of different illnesses, especially autoimmune conditions.
Yeah. And I think some people call it, if you've ever heard, cellular memory. There are things that take hold in your body. That's another word for it. So if you've come across that term before, but Dave's books are really, really simple, right? Emotional healing made simple. And they're accessible.
I try to keep things so that the average person who knows nothing about the subject can actually understand what it's all about.
It's the opposite of some of these highfalutin theological tomes that are out there. They're theologically sound, but they're not going to drive you away with intellectualism. So that's what's really refreshing about Dave's content. So I think somebody over on Rumble said they think this is the longest we've ever gone on a live stream. I don't know.
We're almost at 3 hours.
Yeah, it's quite long. So I really appreciate everybody being here. We have an incredible audience on multiple platforms. We're streaming on Facebook. We're streaming on Rumble, Getter, X, Cloud Hub. We started on YouTube and we moved over. And and so that's probably the way it's going to be from now on, if I'm honest. There's one thing that I wanted to tell people about. Speaking of free speech, I mentioned this a couple of broadcasts ago, but there's an app coming out that everybody's going to have access to, and we're doing some teasers for it. It's called Republic, and it's going to be pretty incredible, and you're all going to have access to it. There is a paid component to it that's available, but not necessary. And I'm going to be having a dedicated show for helping launch that within the next couple of weeks. So just keep your eye out for that. It's pretty amazing, and it's going to bring people into a place where they can have important conversations outside of the censorship. It's not replacing what you're doing with these other platforms, but it's going to be a really valuable tool. So just keep your eyes peeled and focused on that. Republic is what it's called. And so when you see me posting some teaser videos and content about that, you are going to have an opportunity to get that, to take part. It's funded by some patriots, actually even outside of the country, I think, who are just seeing the way the world is going and have real value on preserving free speech in the West. And so it's going to be pretty exciting. I just wanted to make sure people know that's coming. And I think, is there anything else we need to let people know? I'm listener supported here. Dave is independent in what he does. So when you buy his books, when you pay for his courses and things like that, that helps support Dave and Mrs. Medic. He also has a Give, Send, Go, right? And yeah, and so there's different ways. I have a Venmo, like I described. So there's different ways you can support us, and it really does make a difference when you do subscriptions, when you Venmo, when you buy from our partners. It helps us to keep doing what we're doing because we're on the front lines here, and we're dedicated and committed to doing this, to having these conversations with each other and with other people.
Amen.
Anything you want to add?
Not really.
Okay. Are we all talked out?
I think I need a second cup of coffee. I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning, so
Oh gosh.
it's
And listen, to all of my people on Rumble, there has been a robust conversation about water filters over there.
good.
And so the problem
Good.
is that it's hard to see the live you can't see the live chat after the fact. I hope they fix that.
Yeah.
But if
My
anybody's
my recommendation on water is everyone should have at least 2 ways to filter or purify water other than what comes out of your tap.
okay.
I think it's going to be a real issue.
Okay. I'm putting this in the chat. By the way, are people hearing my keyboard now? Because sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Sometimes
I
people
can't.
get irritated by it, and then sometimes it doesn't matter. And I
You
have
seem
no
to
idea.
fix your volume problem, I think.
Don't know. But
I haven't heard
nobody's
any complaints.
yeah,
in
nobody's
the last-
complained about the keyboard.
Yeah.
So
People are going to complain about something.
I know it's loud. I mean, if you have sensitive hearing, I get it, but we do the best we can. This is it. I am the engineer. You see right here, audio engineer, producer, content editor. That's me right here. So thank you for giving me grace because I'm wearing all the hats. See, now they can't hear my keyboard. Don't know. Have no idea why. Okay, so we're going to close out here again with another little commercial break, and we're going to say goodbye to all of you guys. Please watch my channel. I have a great show coming up again on Monday. I've got several shows coming next Friday. If you're on my Facebook, I just want to say to everybody, thank you for helping me to get over 6 million impressions in the last month on Facebook. It's a minor miracle. And I also want to encourage everybody to go over and subscribe to my Rumble channel because we are pushing more and more content onto Rumble, obviously, because we never know how things are going to go on these big tech platforms. And we want you to have a place to see that content. So please, even if you're one of those top fans on Facebook, please go to my Rumble, rumble.com. Search for Mary Grace Media. That's where I want you to join, and you will be able to see my videos over there. If you like my content on Facebook, go on over to Rumble. Don't be afraid. It's not hard. Okay. Everybody have a great day. We're going to end with this little break, and we will see you back here on Mary Grace Media soon. Any last words from Dave before we go, before he has more coffee?
Keep President Trump in prayer.
Yes, absolutely. Amazing. We will do that. Okay. See you soon, everybody. Thanks again, Praying Medic, for being here. It's been a fantastic conversation. Listen, your health is your best investment. We have a country to save, and we need people who are in the best shape of their lives, physically, mentally, spiritually. Why not connect with a team who cares about you on every single level from the inside out? Official Synapse is that team. Officialsynapse.com. It's official, synapse.com. Tell them Mary Grace sent you, and they will treat you like family. If you're like most people, you really probably haven't thought about transferring your paper dollars into physical gold and silver. But I want to tell you a story. My friend Andrew Sorcini over at Beverly Hills Precious Metals, he recently went overseas and he wanted to buy a watch. He likes fine watches. He took 3 currencies with him. He took gold, he took Bitcoin, and he took American dollars. Now, there used to be a time when the American dollar was king. I remember that when I used to travel overseas. Everybody wanted dollars. The people that he was dealing with would not take his dollars because the dollar is so devalued around the world. They wanted the gold. So this is what I recommend to you. I want you to think about this. If you have cash in the bank, if you have an investment account that you have worked hard for years to accumulate, consider the value of converting that money into physical gold and silver. You're not buying something that's losing value. You're changing those worthless dollars into a tangible physical asset that will go up in value, which it has done historically. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to bh-pm.com. The first thing you're going to do is schedule that free consultation. Second thing, just think rationally about this, pray about it, go to the Lord, see what the best decision for you and your family is. I can't tell you that. I don't want to pressure you into that. What I do know is don't be scared, be prepared. And so the third thing you want to do is make a decision for you and your family. Make a decision, take action. bh-pm.com. Let them know Mary Grace sent you. When it comes to food, we really want to be aware of what is in the food that we're consuming. And that includes different types of technologies, jibber jabbers, technology that can alter your genetic makeup. And this is why we want to focus on American grown beef that isn't injected with things that you wouldn't put into your own body. We really don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We saw 4 years ago what happened when the whole country shut down and people couldn't even go to the grocery store. We saw what happened when meat and other foods were rationed, and that could happen any day. We want you to be prepared. We want you to take action. And one of the best ways to do that is to secure food for yourself and your family. What better way than to go to griddownchowdown.com, use promo code Mary Grace, get a sustainable, reliable, shelf-stable source of high-quality American beef. All you do is go to griddownchowdown.com, tell them Mary Grace sent you, put your order in the basket and check out, and you're good to go. The other thing you can do is you can get a subscription. If you do a subscription, you're going to get this freeze-dried beef delivered to your door every month. And you're going to save a little bit while you do that. You're going to stockpile it, or you can just cook with it. Some people are just using it for their regular cooking. It's really up to you, but it's super convenient because it's freeze-dried and it's shelf-stable for 12, 15 years or more. Go to griddownchowdown.com and use promo code Mary Grace. I just want to give a shout out to everybody who watches this show. Thank you for being a participant. Thank you for being a loyal audience member. I just want to remind you, if you like what you've seen, please share this and don't forget to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and also sign up for my email list so you never miss a show.